Chapter 189. Ji-dong stood still. He naturally wouldn't be calculative with such a small fry. They weren't even evil masters. At most, they were just some well-built commoners. Just as he was about to release his yin-yang crown to scare them away, the discordant voice from before rang out again. The one who spoke was the leader of the group. He looked to be in his 40s. He wasn't tall, but he was extremely well-built. His pair of beady eyes landed on the flaming bar, sizing her up. Although the flaming bar didn't reveal a single bit of her skin, her aura wasn't something that could be covered up completely. She had a perfect figure and a head of fiery red wavy hair. She was filled with a mysterious charm. If one paid attention to her, they would be stunned. This chick isn't bad. Come on, brothers, surround her. These two arrogant fellows dared to offend our Golden Eagle trade union. Let's take them down first. Everyone could see the lustful light in this fellow's eyes. The people from the Golden Eagle Merchant Guild around him immediately surrounded him and looked at Raging Flame with evil intentions. They all laughed lewdly at the same time. It was obvious that this was not the first time they had done such a thing. Dragons had a reverse scale. Touching it would result in rage. Tyrants also had a reverse scale. That was the goddess in his heart. Ji-dong wouldn't allow them to look at her obscenely. The silver chain made of deep-sea heavy silver circled around the flaming bar's slender waist. Ji-dong's body spun around with the flaming bar as the center. The men from the Golden Eagle Trade Union only saw a blur in front of their eyes. In the next moment, their bodies were frozen in place, never to move again. What Ji-dong did couldn't be any simpler. He only lightly pressed on the top of each of their heads. On the surface, these burly men didn't seem to be injured at all. However, in the next moment, a strange scene appeared. From their orifices, wisps of green smoke rose. Fire God, Vanquishing Strike. This was the first time Ji-dong used it. These men from the Golden Eagle Trade Union paid the price for their obscenity. After the fire entered their bodies, they looked unharmed on the surface. But in reality, their brains had been burnt to ashes. To these ordinary people, Ji-dong only used the fire. Returning to Raging Flame's side, Ji-dong looked at his palm. This was the first time he had used the deity extermination strike, and he had a strange feeling in his heart. When he condensed the fourth fire in his palm and gently patted the heads of these people, the condensed fourth fire only paused for a moment on each of the 10 of them. But in the next moment, it was like a sharp needle piercing into the depths of their brains before exploding. As expected of the title of God Vanquishing Strike, the mana released from within the body was completely different from the mana released from outside the body. Ji-dong could clearly feel that as long as the enemy was hit by the God Vanquishing Strike, they would only die. It seemed like a simple and useless skill, but when it was used, one could feel its power. And this was only the first stage of the God Vanquishing Strike. Let's go, the flaming bar said gently. Ji-dong nodded. With a wave of his hand, a gust of air swept up the surrounding corpses. At the same time, he flicked his fingers, and more than 10 scale-like golden lights flew into the distance. When they entered the forest, there was a roar and a surge of fire elements. Ji-dong had perfect control over his mana. Under his deliberate control, not only did the dragon scale flash stop the ordinary people from chasing after them, it was also enough to cause the horses of the Golden Eagle Trade Union to suffer heavy losses. As they entered the Forest of Life, the temperature obviously dropped. The moist and fresh air in the forest was refreshing, and the surging aura of life constantly rushed in from all directions. However, at this moment, Ji-dong had already lost the mood to appreciate these things. He said, "Flaming Bar, the Forest of Life has always been the territory of the forest demons. There are no strong magical beasts here. Although there are many fruits and some rare plants, the most precious thing is the source of life that only the forest demons would brew. If I'm not wrong, the Golden Eagle Trade Union's target is probably the source of life of the forest demons. Since we're here, let's quickly go and take a look." The flaming bar lifted her veil, revealing her peerlessly beautiful face. Hyoheim smiled and said, "In the human world, you're the host. I'll naturally listen to your arrangements." Ji-dong looked at the flaming bar's face with infatuation. and quickly turned his head away. He did not know if it was because of the gradual increase in his strength, but the high and mighty feeling of the flaming bar was gradually disappearing to him. His self-control was also getting worse. He did not dare to look at the flaming bar for too long, as he was afraid that he would not be able to control himself and do something obscene to the flaming bar. Jidong had already woken up after his bitter cultivation. He had already made up his mind that after the second battle of the holy and evil ended, he would express his love to the flaming bar if he could increase his strength. He knew that he was running away, but there was nothing he could do because he was too afraid of losing the flaming bar. Holding the flaming bar's hand, Jidong soared into the sky. He skillfully used his own mana to support himself and the flaming bar as they soared through the forest, heading towards the depths of the forest of life. Judging from the time, the people from the Golden Eagle Chamber of Commerce should have already entered the forest more than an hour before they arrived. They had to catch up as soon as possible in order to stop these people from doing evil. The golden and black flames gradually took shape on Jidong's shoulders, and two little flaming people quietly appeared. They were the Holy Fire elemental body and the Devil Flame elemental body. They were different from the ones that were condensed on the Holy Evil Island. Now that Jidong had condensed them again, these two little flaming people already looked 70% similar to humans. Not only did they have limbs, but they also looked similar to Jidong. Their bodies were surrounded by flames, and they looked like 5 or 6 years old children. They sat quietly on Jidong's shoulders. As soon as they appeared, a condensation array immediately appeared behind them, and the fire elements in the forest of life quickly fused into them, nourishing their bodies. Dual Fire Elemental Body Summoning. The biggest feature of these two skills was that they could evolve. They would evolve according to the user's own strength. At the same time, the longer they existed in the outside world, the higher their strength would be. The flaming bar told Jidong that if the dual fire elemental body summoning could evolve to the extreme, they would be able to recreate the glory of the two great kings. This showed how magical this skill was. The reason why Jidong didn't always release them around him was because this skill had its drawbacks. First of all, if he released the two elemental bodies, they would constantly absorb the fire elements around them. If he was cultivating, it would be much slower than usual, and most of the fire elements would be absorbed by the two elemental bodies. Furthermore, the two elemental bodies couldn't be teleported in any way, which made it impossible for Jidong to use the rich fire elements in the geocentric lake to nurture them. Therefore, Jidong would only release them during a battle, or during a long battle, to use them for attack or reconnaissance. Once Jidong released his body, his speed instantly became extremely fast. A layer of white luster appeared in his eyes, as though a layer of precious light was plated on his black eyes. If someone had the ability to use their soul power to investigate, they would see traces of white halos emitting from Jidong's eyes and spreading to the front. Within a 500-meter radius, all the unknown paths were reflected in his mind. Therefore, even though the terrain of the forest was complicated, his speed didn't decrease at all. He didn't need to distinguish anything to find the best way to advance. Like a ray of light, he rushed into the depths of the forest of life with the flaming bar. The strangest thing was that Jidong still hadn't released his yin-yang crown. It seemed that he was only releasing some basic mana to increase his speed to such an extent. About an hour later, the two of them had already entered the depths of the forest of life. Relying on his immense mental strength after controlling the soul fire, Jidong followed the traces left behind by the people from the Golden Eagle Chamber of Commerce. He wasn't afraid of going in the wrong direction. There's the smell of blood. With the flaming bar in tow, Jidong stopped and stood on a thick branch. His nose twitched as he frowned. His sixth senses were much sharper than ordinary people. After cultivating to become a yin and yang magician, this characteristic had naturally become stronger. Perhaps it was because he had painstakingly studied bartending in his previous life, but among his 6 senses, the 2 strongest were smell and taste. Even though the smell of blood in the air wasn't strong, his sense of smell was different from the fragrance of the surrounding plants, so he could easily identify it. It seems that your judgment is correct. The flaming bar sighed softly and said, "The conflict of interest between you humans is much more intense than in the core world." Jidong clenched the flaming bar's hand tightly and said, "Let's go take a look." This time, he didn't need to identify the traces left behind by the Golden Eagle Chamber of Commerce. He just soared in the direction of the smell of blood. After a few minutes, Jidong saw the first corpse. It was a green corpse that looked at least 70% to 80% similar to a human. However, it was thinner and smaller than a human. Its limbs were proportionally longer, and its head was a little sharp. It had no hair, and its surroundings were dyed red with dark red blood. There was a huge hole in its chest, and its internal organs were ruptured. It died a horrible death. Is this a forest demon? The flaming bar's tone was slightly cold. Even though her face was covered by a veil, Jidong could still feel that the flaming bar was frowning. Previously, Jidong had used fire to kill the people from the Golden Eagle Chamber of Commerce because he didn't want the flaming bar to see blood. However, he couldn't avoid seeing it now. The holy fire elemental body spewed out a ball of flames and turned the corpse into ashes. The two of them continued forward. What they saw next could only be described as a ghastly sight. In the forest that was originally filled with life, more and more corpses and the thick smell of blood appeared. Most of the corpses were green-skinned forest demons. Some of them were killed by sharp blades, while others were obviously killed by the five elements' demonic skills. In the blink of an eye, more than 100 corpses appeared where Jidong and the rest passed by. The flaming bar sighed and said, "No one can deprive a tribe of their right to live. Jidong, help them." At this moment, Jidong's heart was already burning with rage. Even if the flaming bar didn't say anything, how could he just stand by and watch? The tragic scene in front of him had already touched his violent heart. His eyes that were filled with gentleness due to the presence of the flaming bar was once again replaced with coldness that was filled with murderous intent. In the distance, the sounds of fighting could be heard. The closer they got to the sounds of fighting, the more corpses they saw on the ground. Apart from the corpses of the forest demons, they could occasionally see 1 or 2 corpses of the Golden Eagle Chamber of Commerce's men. Most of them were killed by wooden weapons. However, compared to the number of forest demons that died, it was far too few. Finally, Jidong and the flaming bar saw the battlefield. In the dense forest, swords flashed, and the five elements' demonic skills flickered. There were at least 5,000 people engaged in this chaotic battle. The forest demons were the majority. These small tribes were using their crude weapons to resist the enemy's invasion. However, the enemy they were facing was too strong. Almost every skill of the Golden Eagle Chamber of Commerce could kill at least one forest demon. This was simply a one-sided massacre. Among the forest demons, there were also some experts who could use the first wood and second would attribute demonic skills. Their bodies were also slightly larger than ordinary forest demons. But after all, they were in the minority. Facing the ferocious experts of the Golden Eagle Chamber of Commerce, they were retreating step by step, and with every step they took, they would leave behind dozens of corpses. Elder Tom, are you still going to be stubborn? Are you willing to throw away the lives of your clansmen for the source of life? Thirdly, according to our investigations, there are over 200,000 forest demons in the Forest of Life. However, your tribe only has less than 5,000 people. Although it's a large tribe in the Forest Demon Kingdom, if you continue to be stubborn, I don't mind completely wiping you out of the Forest of Life. Let alone you, even if all the forest demons were here, they wouldn't be able to stop us. We only want the source of life, not your lives. On the Golden Eagle Chamber of Commerce's side, a tall, middle-aged man who seemed to be in his 50s spoke. He wore azure armor, and his entire body shone with a dazzling azure light. He held a spear in his hand, but he did not join the battle. However, the sun crown on his head displayed his powerful strength. There were a total of 7 crowns with the firstwood brand. He was actually a 7-crown celestial master. For a chamber of commerce to have a 7-crown celestial master, there was no need to doubt their strength. In particular, this person was riding a huge magical beast. It was a bramblewood demon dragon covered in azure scales. It was a subspecies of dragon, and from its appearance, it was also a Class 7 magical beast. A 7-crown celestial master and a Class 7 magical beast. Although this combination was not enough to dominate the continent, it was still a powerful one. The spear in his hand that flickered with azure light was also not an ordinary item. Chapter 190. Other than the 7-crown celestial master Lucar, there were 10 other evil masters who had yet to make a move. They were the true experts of the Golden Eagle Chamber of Commerce. On the forest demon's side, there was a slender, 2-meter-tall old forest demon with a face full of wrinkles. He glared at them and slammed his 3-meter-long wooden walking stick on the ground. Golden Eagle Chamber of Commerce. What a Golden Eagle Chamber of Commerce. Lucar, you have killed so many of our people. You will receive the most severe punishment from the forest demon tribe. Although you have many evil masters, our forest demon tribe also has hundreds of thousands of people. When the great forest demon army arrives, it will be the time of your deaths. The middle-aged Lucar laughed and said, Tom, I'm afraid you won't be able to live until the great forest demon army arrives. Let's not talk about the fact that they won't be able to arrive in time. Even if they do, so what? I'd like to meet them. To be honest with you, we're fully prepared since we dare to come here. If you forest demons dare to take revenge on us humans, then you can only wait for your doom. There are many good things in the forest of life that you can't occupy. Lowly creatures like you shouldn't even exist. Since you're not willing to hand over the origin of life, then your forest demon tribe can only wait to be annihilated. When we completely rule over the forest of life, are you afraid that we won't be able to enslave your people to refine the origin of life? Elder Tom was furious. However, his eyes were filled with helplessness and sorrow. Lucar was right. If they dared to take revenge, the only result would be the extinction of their tribe. Compared to humans, the forest demons were too weak. Although hundreds of thousands of them were not a small number in the forest of life, they were too few in the outside world. Moreover, although the forest demons had the appearance of humans, they did not have the cultivation, potential, and comprehension that humans had. The number of forest demons that could cultivate to become demon masters was pitifully few compared to humans. It was even more difficult to become an expert. Even the strongest experts in the forest demon army and the forest demon kingdom only had the strength of a triple-crown demon master. Not a single one of them could reach the level of a 6-crown demon master. How could they fight against humans? At this moment, a beautiful voice that seemed to have come from a fairyland floated over. Even in this chaotic battlefield, it still reached everyone's ears. Every race has the right to live. Regardless of whether it's humans or anything else, no one has the right to deprive it. With a flash of light, 2 figures descended from the sky. It was Jidong and the Flaming Bar. The Flaming Bar's tone was very calm, but her voice still attracted the attention of the experts from the Golden Eagle Merchant Guild. Lucar frowned slightly. The operation he led the Golden Eagle Merchant Guild on this time could be said to be as swift as lightning and extremely secretive. He was afraid that news would leak out and cause unnecessary trouble, but he did not expect that someone would still dare to interfere. However, when he saw Jidong's appearance, he immediately relaxed. Jidong looked too young. Although the Flaming Bar beside him was fully clothed, the female voice from before was clearly from her. From her voice, she did not seem too old either. Lucar's habitual thinking told him that even if the man and woman in front of him were demon masters, they were so young. How could they pose a threat to their team of 2,000 people? Lucar shouted in a deep voice, "Who are you people? The Golden Eagle Merchant Guild is working here, and we are all humans. Please do us a favor, and we will definitely reward you handsomely in the future. I am the vice president of the Golden Eagle Merchant Guild, Lucar." Although he judged that Jidong and the Flaming Bar were not very strong, they must have something up their sleeve since they dared to stop him in the midst of thousands of troops. His target was the source of life, and he did not want to cause any unnecessary trouble. Hence, he became polite to Jidong and the Flaming Bar, hoping to send them away. Jidong said indifferently, "Humans? Are you also humans? Why can't I see that slaughtering a peace-loving and weak race is what humans should do? In my eyes, You are just beasts in human skin. Brat, are you tired of living? A slender demon master beside Lu Kar scolded angrily. Ji Dong said indifferently, "You will soon find out who is tired of living, horror." A golden stream of light soared from the vermilion bird bracelet on Ji Dong's wrist and instantly rushed into the sky. Gold and black lights surged, and 6 dazzling tail feathers rippled in the air. Horror's body had already reached 5 meters in length. When she spread her wings, a dazzling light spread out in all directions, and the surrounding area was immediately filled with surging and rich fire elements. As Jidong's power increased, had been training by his side for the past 4 years. She had been influenced by the changes in Jidong's body. What was even more peculiar was that who was blessed with good fortune, had placed a trace of her soul in Jidong's soul when he was comprehending the flame of the soul. Although she had not signed a true contract with Jidong, she had already formed a true spiritual connection with him. This way, when Jidong's flame of the soul was successfully cultivated, Horror had instantly evolved. Currently, her body was about the same size as her mother, the vermilion bird. However, as the influence of the ultimate dual flames deepened, her appearance became more and more different from the vermilion bird's. A golden phoenix with dark flames radiating from its body was a miraculous sight. Hua-Er's appearance immediately shocked the entire battlefield, and the battle came to a temporary halt. As a 7-crown celestial master, Lu Kar had naturally done quite a bit of research on magical beasts. However, when he saw Hua-Er, he could not help but be stunned. In his memories, the magical beast before him was extremely similar to the legendary fire divine beast, the vermilion bird. However, how could the vermilion bird possess the aura of fire? Just what kind of magical beast was this? He really could not recognize it. However, regardless of the element of this magical beast that resembled the vermilion bird, when she appeared, the Class 7 thorny-wood demon dragon beneath Kar clearly trembled and slowly took a step back. From this point alone, Lu Kar determined that the magical beast before him had a cultivation no lower than Class 7. Furthermore, it was very likely that it was a close relative of the vermilion bird, a powerful magical beast of an extremely high quality. It was no wonder that this man and woman dared to stand up against his own army. They actually had something like this to rely on. However, the youth in front of him did not look like someone with the cultivation of a 6-crown celestial master. How could he possess such a powerful magical beast? Just as Kar was hesitating, Jidong's decision shocked him once again. Jidong did not order Hua-Er to attack. He slowly untied the silver chain cast from the deep-sea silver around his waist and said to her, "Hua-Er, help me protect the flaming bar." Hua-Er nodded. He and Jidong had ventured deep into the core of the world, so how could he not know who the flaming bar was? He spread his wings and landed in front of the flaming bar. He used his phoenix crown to rub against the flaming bar's body in an ingratiating manner. Jidong pulled the flaming bar's hand and said, "Don't look. I don't want their filthy blood to pollute your eyes." The flaming bar nodded and did not say anything. Although there were many enemies, the flaming bar could not help but feel happy for Jidong when he saw that he would not hesitate even if there were millions of enemies around him. Over the past 4 years, perhaps Jidong's magical power had not increased by much, and his cultivation speed was not as fast as before. However, in these 4 years, he had used his soul fire to master all of his abilities. He had truly become a powerhouse of his generation. This kind of Jidong was definitely terrifying. Raging flames turned around, her back facing the direction of the battlefield. She nodded slightly towards Elder Tiamu and said, "Leave this place to us. Elder, please recall your clansmen and help the dying and the injured." Elder Tiamu said hesitantly, "But there are only 2 of you." If it was not for the fact that Flaming Bar's appearance had shocked these forest demons, he would have thought that the Flaming Bar was talking nonsense. The Flaming Bar smiled and said, "It's better to let the facts prove everything." Just as Raging Flame was speaking, Jidong had already walked out step by step. Layers of strange white light spread out from his body. A layer of lustrous white luster appeared on his skin, as if he was wearing a set of white clothes. The vermilion bird inner armor from the vermilion bird transformation had disappeared, and the winged serpent transformation had also disappeared. These two transformations had long been merged into one by Jidong. In addition to the benefits that he had obtained from being bathed in the dragon's blood, the white luster that his body was emitting was called the Phoenix Dance Dragon Serpent Transformation by Jidong. Indistinctly, one could see the silhouettes of a dragon, a serpent, and a phoenix. The silhouettes of the three great divine beasts roamed within the white light that was emitted from Jidong's body. His entire temperament had undergone an earth-shattering change. The black and white yin-yang fishes rose above Jidong's head and turned into black and white energy, condensing into a strange yin-yang crown that had never changed since ancient times. Compared to the previous yin-yang crown, this yin-yang crown was not black on the left and white on the right. Instead, it was formed by the fusion of black and white, intertwining with each other. The 9 crowns remained the same, but there were 6 crowns with brands, and these brands were in the form of strange black and white flames intertwining with each other. Apart from the brands of the 6 crowns, there was also half a shining black and white star on the crown. This yin-yang crown would no longer change according to any skills that Jidong used. Its formation was based on Jidong's own mana, and it was transformed into a soul fire through the chaotic flames. 6 crowns, level 61. That's right. After 4 years of bitter cultivation, when Jidong woke up from his bitter cultivation, he had already broken through 2 major bottlenecks and became a level 61 demon master. The true chaotic flames were level 61. The strange changes on Jidong's body and the 6 crowns brands caused Lu Kar's expression to become serious. Looking at the black and white yin-yang crown above Jidong's head, he couldn't help but frown. With his strength, he could definitely be considered a top figure in the demon master world, but he had never heard of such a strange yin-yang crown like Jidong's. In particular, although this young man's mana wasn't as strong as his, the aura his body emitted made his heartbeat accelerate. Vaguely, an ominous premonition reverberated in Lu Kar's heart. "You're courting death." The tall, skinny, middle-aged man who had angrily rebuked Jidong soared into the air. Scarlet-red mana blossomed, emitting the unique luster of the third fire. With a furious roar, a Class 6 flaming lion brazenly appeared under his crotch. This demon master indeed had the ability to be arrogant. 6 crowns and 3 stars showed his mana at level 66. With the addition of a magical beast under him, as soon as his mana appeared, the surrounding air immediately became scorching hot. In order to guard against the great forest goblin army in the Forest Goblin Kingdom, the people from the Golden Eagle Merchant Guild didn't use their full strength. The experts led by Lu Kar didn't make a move, otherwise they might really have flattened the Forest Goblin tribe in front of them. "This kid is a bit strange. Maha, be careful," Lu Kar warned. Third Fire Heavenly Scholar Maha responded. The flaming lion under him suddenly roared and charged straight at Jidong. At this moment, although Jidong had already released his yin-yang crown, no one could tell what his mana attribute was. The aura on his body was completely restrained. Only the 2 fire elemental bodies on his shoulders vaguely let these people know what his attribute was. However, who had ever seen a yin-yang crown with black and white entangled flames? Therefore, no one could be sure what Jidong's ability was. This Ma's attack seemed rash, but in fact, it was secretly instructed by Lu Kar. Jidong's ability was suspected to be of the fire attribute, so he used the fire attribute to deal with him. Naturally, it would be easy to see what his ability was. As the largest trading company in the Easternwood Empire, how could the Golden Eagle Merchant Guild be easy to deal with? With 2,000 people, they dared to charge into the Forest Demon Kingdom so brazenly. Naturally, they had their own strengths. As the leader, Lu Kar naturally would not act rashly. He wanted to clearly see Jidong's ability first, then kill him in a single stroke. Although the flaming lion's body was not as large as the dragon's, it was still over 5 meters long. With a sudden burst of power, it arrived in front of Jidong in a flash. That third fire Heavenly Scholar Maha did indeed listen to Lu Kar's words. He was extremely careful and did not attack Hyoheim. Instead, he condensed a huge flaming shield in front of him, only allowing the flaming lion below him to attack Jidong. The flaming lion flew above Jidong, and a huge claw covered in dense red flames slammed down towards Jidong. This was the most direct and effective attack. It contained both the strength of the flaming lion and the explosive power of its two fire attributes. Using the momentum of the pounce, the strength of a Class 6 magical beast was fully displayed. Seeing the flaming lion pouncing towards him, Jidong didn't make much of a reaction. He only stopped moving forward when he saw the flaming lion's claw coming towards him. He raised his left hand and actually blocked the flaming lion's claw. Everyone thought that Jidong had gone mad. Even Lucar was the same. The flaming lion was a Class 6 magical beast. Although it could not compare to a 6-crown demon master, the strength of a magical beast was far superior to that of a human. Even Lucar would not use his body to fight against the flaming lion, but Jidong had done so. Chapter 191. Faced with the flaming lion's attack, Jidong only raised his left hand to block it. Compared to humans, Jidong's figure wasn't particularly tall, let alone when compared to the flaming lion. His hand wasn't even a tenth of the size of the flaming lion's front paw. From the looks of it, it was an unbalanced comparison. However, what made all the experts of the Golden Eagle Merchant Guild stare with their eyes wide open was that the flaming lion's violent claw didn't manage to tear Jidong to shreds. Instead, it was blocked by his left hand. It was so simple that it was blocked. There was a soft puff sound, but there wasn't any explosion. Jidong didn't even sway a bit, but the flaming lion's front paw was frozen in place on his left hand, unable to move even an inch forward. Jidong was a human, but his strength had long surpassed the limits of a human. After all, the blood of the frost dragon, the blood of the vermilion bird, and the blood of the flying dragon had fused into his body. How could his strength be compared to that of a human? The toughness of his body and the strength of his strength far surpassed that of a normal human. Although the flaming lion was a Class 6 magical beast with extraordinary strength, there was still a large gap between it and a magical beast that truly possessed great strength. Even if it was purely a competition of strength, it definitely wasn't a match for Jidong. The shocking scene of blocking the flaming lion with a single hand immediately caused the originally arrogant and domineering aura of the Golden Eagle Merchant Guild to stagnate. However, what happened next was something they couldn't understand. The flaming lion's front claw was blocked by Jidong. Out of instinct, the flaming lion reacted almost immediately. The third fire magical energy in its body completely burst forth and pressed towards Hyoheim with all its might. The sixth third fire heavenly scholar Maha on its back didn't stay idle either. Because he was apprehensive about Jidong, he directly used the flaming shield he had condensed as a weapon and smashed it down. At the same time, a light flashed in his hand, and a heavy sword that was 2 meters long and a foot wide appeared, smashing down right after the shield. The air within a diameter of 10 meters was filled with violent third fire elements. The might of a 6th third crown powerhouse was fully displayed. Although Jidong had blocked the flaming lion's sharp claws, the strength that Maha had erupted with was still astonishing. It wasn't the slightest bit inferior to Huang Liming, the commander of the Imperial Guards of the Central Plains Empire who had chased after Jidong. Unfortunately, he was no longer facing the Jidong of the past. Back then, when he was being chased by Huang Liming, Jidong had already suffered a great defeat when he was only level 40, let alone now that he had mastered all his abilities and comprehended the mysteries of the soul fire. When Maha's attack was in full bloom, Car's expression suddenly relaxed a little. In his opinion, in a situation where both sides were 6-crown magic masters, if Jidong wanted to block Maha's attack, he would have to go all out. Unfortunately, the smile on his face only appeared for a moment before it was replaced by shock. On the battlefield, all the flames that covered a range of 10 meters had disappeared. They were swept away, leaving no traces behind. The only thing that could be seen was the flaming lion without any mana, and Maha, who was raising his giant sword and slashing down. Although Ma's attack did not change, at this time, his face was full of fear. When a magic master attacked with all his strength, he suddenly found that all the mana he had released from his body had disappeared. What kind of feeling would that be? At this time, Maha only felt one thing, and that was fear. Then, an incomparably huge pressure suddenly burst out from Jidong's body. That was the purest and most direct attribute suppression. Whether it was Maha or the flaming lion, at this moment, their bodies unconsciously trembled from head to toe. Maha's originally full-strength slash had also become weak at this time. Step forward, palm forward, Jidong's right hand just happened to hit the flaming lion's chest. This step forward also coincidentally allowed him to dodge Maha's heavy sword attack. The flaming lion's body no longer trembled under Jidong's hand. Instead, it was completely frozen in place, still maintaining the appearance of when it attacked Jidong just now. This was because it had already been hit by Jidong's supreme Yang God-destroying strike. Jidong's movements were as simple and effective as before. After the palm hit the flaming lion, he used his left foot as the axis to turn his body half backwards. His left hand just happened to grab the Maha heavy sword's blade. At this time, Maha had already reacted. An unprecedented sense of crisis made him clearly feel that death was approaching. In this kind of situation, his body's potential was completely stimulated. Although he could not release his mana, he poured all of his mana into the heavy sword. With a fierce swing, he wanted to cut off Jidong's hand. Amidst the clanging sounds, the 2-meter-long heavy sword that weighed no less than 200 kilograms stopped in Jidong's hands like it was cast from copper and iron. His slender left hand, as if it was the core of the power between heaven and earth, firmly grasped the heavy sword, causing it to be unable to move at all. At the same time that Jidong grabbed the heavy sword, a violent explosion suddenly came from under Ma's body. From the time Jidong made his move to grabbing the heavy sword, it actually only took a few blinks of an eye. When Maha was desperately trying to grab the sword, he never thought that his good companion, the flaming lion, would become the main culprit that took him out of this world. The entire flaming lion turned into a golden fireball in an instant and exploded. Maha was not prepared at all. Although he saw Jidong's light palm imprint on the flaming lion's chest, he didn't think that the seemingly simple palm would be so violent. The golden fireball came from below. With a loud bang, it had already completely wrapped Maha's body. He could no longer hold the heavy sword in his hand. His palm heated up, and the heavy sword had already changed hands, falling into Jidong's hands. Jidong pulled the tip of his sword downwards, and the hilt of the heavy sword had already fallen into his hands. He held it with a backhand grip, and at the same time, his body soared 2 meters into the air. The 2-meter-long heavy sword brought about a ray of death light in the air, and the surging flames that soared into the air were sliced in half by the sword. At the same time, the 2 fire heavenly scholar Maha and his mount, the flaming berserk lion, were also sliced in half. The battle between the 2 sides had only lasted for a few breaths of time. There was only one feeling, and that was that it was very simple. Throughout the entire process, Jidong seemed to have done it effortlessly and effortlessly. With a few simple movements, he had ended the entire battle. He did not even have to use a single magic skill. An opponent who was at the same level as him, and whose magic level was even higher than his, had died just like that. His left hand made a grabbing motion, and a 6th-grade life crystal core and a 6th-grade radiant fire crystal crown fell into Jidong's hand. He didn't raise his head to look at the expressions of Kar and the others. Instead, his eyes fell on the heavy sword in his hand. The heavy sword was 2.4 meters long. The blade was 1 foot and 2 inches wide, and the sword ridge was 3 inches thick. Just the hilt alone was 2 feet long. Its entire body was black, and it emitted a strong fluctuation of fire elemental energy. Although the material used to forge the sword was not the best, it was obvious that the powder of fire elemental crystal cores had been fused into it. With such a large size, it could be considered a decent magic weapon. With the heavy sword in hand, Jidong had already soared into the air. A layer of rich dark red light shot out from Ji-dong's vermilion bird bracelet. The demon lord Yin-yang armor clanked as it covered his entire body. When that sinister mask covered Ji-dong's face, a strong murderous intent gushed out like mercury. Facing nearly 2,000 enemies, he actually charged forward with the wings on his back spread out, heading straight for Lu Kar, who was the leader of the Golden Eagle Chamber of Commerce. To shoot a man, first shoot his horse, and to capture the bandits, first capture the ringleader. Lu Kar originally had 10 great experts by his side, and they were all hired by the Golden Eagle Chamber of Commerce at a high price. This time, the Golden Eagle Chamber of Commerce could be said to have sent out all of their elites. The value of the source of life was too high, not only in the Easternwood Empire, but in the upper-class society of the entire Radiant Five Elements mainland. It was a priceless treasure. For this plunder, the Golden Eagle Chamber of Commerce could be said to have made ample preparations. Nearly 100 demon masters under the leadership of the Seven Crown Celestial Master Lu Kar charged into the forest of life like a hot knife through butter. However, man proposes, God disposes. How could they have imagined that they would encounter the evil tyrant Ji-dong under such circumstances? Lu Kar clearly had a large number of experts by his side, but when Ji-dong swooped down from the air, he clearly felt as if he was facing this enemy alone. The wild flame breath hit him in the face, and his firstwood magic almost instantly felt the pain of attribute suppression. However, Lu Kar was, after all, a seven-crowned celestial master. In the face of the tyrannical attribute suppression, he raised the spear in his hand and pointed it at Ji-dong. With a roar, the bramblewood demonic dragon under him suddenly released a strong firstwood element and merged with him. On the spear, a green light burst forth, and behind his back, the azure dragon totem flashed. Lu Kar's body completely turned turquoise, entering the state of the elemental body. Relying on the firstwood elemental body, Lu Kar felt that the pressure he had to bear was reduced a bit. He did not dare to neglect. His magic output was full, and the spear in his hand stabbed straight in the air. A green light broke through the air, and in the midst of the loud dragon roar, the azure dragon totem behind him flew forward, directly attached to the green light he stabbed out, and went straight to Ji-dong, who was falling from the sky. The ability that Ji-dong had displayed when he killed Maha was so terrifying that Lu Kar had used his proudest killing skill, the firstwood azure dragon stab, as soon as he came up. A huge vitality filled the air, and the firstwood azure dragon stab, which was condensed by the green light, burst out with surging magic fluctuations. The magic power of Seven Crowns was already an extremely terrifying existence. This level of killing skill was enough to make a rank 8 magical beast tremble. Humph! A cold snort broke out from Ji-dong's mouth, and the two extreme fire elemental bodies on both sides of his shoulders exerted their power at the same time, each ejecting 10 fireballs. These ultimate fireballs did not attack Lu Kar, but flew in pairs in all directions, forming 10 ultimate double fireballs in an instant. The evolved Holy Fire elemental body and Magic Flame elemental body showed their tyrannical strength. Although there was still a big gap between their attack and Ji-dong's, it was no problem to block those 6-crowned demons. What Ji-dong wanted was an opportunity to face the firstwood celestial master, Lu Kar, alone. In midair, Ji-dong's whole person completed a clever half-turn in an instant, and the heavy sword in his hand burst into golden light. Under the effect of the strong, extreme yang fire, the heavy sword suddenly burned violently, and the body began to melt rapidly. A golden sun suddenly appeared behind Ji-dong, reflecting his whole body shining with milky white light, which was a spectacle. Forbidden 100,000 brilliant sun cone. With a sure kill against a sure kill, Ji-dong did not rely on the flying snake flash to dodge, but launched a strong attack from the front. The power of the tyrant was undoubtedly shown. The dazzling golden light illuminated the entire sky. In this big forest full of life, the extreme yang fire surged wildly, and a huge golden cone, with a magic weapon heavy sword as the center, flew out brazenly from Ji-dong's hand. With the release of the brilliant sun cone, Jidong's body shone with milky white light, a strong golden-red light condensed. And in the blink of an eye, he had already released the Flame Monarch body. The Flame Monarch brilliant sun cone met the first wood celestial master Azure Dragon stab. The result was no doubt. The first fire subdues the metal, the second subdues the wood. The first wood attribute was originally suppressed by the third fire, not to mention that Jidong released the ultimate third fire. Although Lu Kar's magic was more than 10 levels higher than Jidong's, the difference in attributes alone had erased the level gap between the two. What's more, the current Jidong was even displaying the Phoenix Dance Dragon Snake transformation, which was a fusion of the three mythical beasts. The concentration of magic in the body was simply beyond his imagination. Facing the tyrant's brilliant sun cone head-on, even Fury the Thunder Emperor had to be cautious. Boom! The dazzling golden light, like the sun, erupted in the air. The green dragon attached to the first wood green dragon spike suddenly made a burst of sorrowful cries. The huge green dragon spike melted in the air like ice and snow, and finally broke, turning into a little green light and dissipating in the air. The brilliant sun cone, which was only weakened by half, still fell from the sky and went straight to Lu Kar. Lu Kar had just used a killing skill. At this time, it was the time when Lu Kar's old power had just dissipated, and he had no time to resist it with his skills. In desperation, Lu Kar waved his left hand, and a green light was released, turning into a huge green wood shield in mid-air to block his body. This was not a skill, but his magic weapon. The roar sounded again, and the green wood shield scattered. The attack power of the brilliant sun cone was terrifying. Even after the resistance of this greenwood shield, the aftermath of the attack still made Lu Kar's whole body covered with a layer of gold. The aura of extreme yang forced him to even have difficulty breathing, and his movements were sluggish. He could only fully mobilize his first wood magic to resist, and at this moment, a huge golden fist had been delivered in front of him. As early as the release of the brilliant sun cone, the Flame Monarch's back had already lit up with the soaring sun flame array. Jidong's Flame Monarch body carried an unparalleled momentum, like a meteor falling straight after. It was the brazen attack of the scorching sun devourer. He had just released a killing skill, and there was no delay in the mobilization of magic. Chapter 192. His strength had increased to 6 crowns, and the power of the brilliant sun all could be fully unleashed. In a collision with the 7 crowns with Celestial Master, Lu Kar, not only did he gain the upper hand, but he also completely suppressed his opponent. It should be known that Lu Kar was not fighting alone. He also borrowed the magic of his magical beast companion, but he still could not compete with the brilliant sun all. It could be seen how powerful the Flame Monarch's ultimate skill was. Moreover, the activation of the brilliant sun all did not consume much of Jidong's own power, because he had previously absorbed a large amount of third fire magic from the Flaming Lion and Maha by relying on the Fire Demon Devour skill. Seeing the suddenly enlarged golden heavy fist, Lu Kar's pupils suddenly contracted violently. From the combat power that Jidong had displayed when he killed Mo, he had already judged that this young man was very strong, but he did not expect that Jidong was strong to this extent. At this moment, even if he was slow, he could feel that what Jidong released was the ultimate flame. At this time, there was no time for Lu Kar to think too much. The distance was too close, and his spear could no longer attack. At this time, he displayed the rich combat experience of a veteran powerhouse. He loosened his right hand and did not hesitate to give up the high-rank magic weapon, the spear. He punched forward at the same time, and the magic in his body circulated at a high speed. The cyan armor on his body trembled violently, and a strong magic burst out in an instant. There were actually 2 Azure Dragon Totem energy bursting out along his arms. In a loud bang, the golden color on Lu Kar's body increased a bit, and even the thorny wood demon dragon under him was also dyed with a layer of gold. Jidong, who collided with him, swayed slightly in the air. His body stopped for half a second, and the Flame Monarch's powerful right shoulder had already hit him. How is this possible? Lucar was shocked. This time he really panicked. The seemingly simple blow just now was not the power of himself and the thorny wood demon dragon. The armor on his body trembled because of the special nature of the armor. This was a treasure that he had obtained a few years ago. The whole set of armor could store a certain amount of first wood magic. When fighting with an opponent, as long as the armor was activated, the magic in the armor could be added to his attack. With his strength at the 7 crown level, coupled with the sudden burst of magic, he could often catch his opponent off guard. It was precisely because of the strength of Ji-Dong's Flame Monarch that Lucar had no choice but to use this life-saving method. When the two sides collided, he clearly felt that although his opponent had the ultimate dual fire, his magic was far superior to his opponent's. Even if it was not enough to hurt Ji-Dong, it should be enough to send him flying. However, Ji-Dong's body only swayed a little. The Flame Monarch's right fist produced a strong suction force, sucking the two bodies together. And Ji-Dong seemed to be unaffected, so the Scorching Sun Devour followed by the Scorching Sun Collapse. Lucar didn't know that after engraving the Flame Monarch's body, Ji-Dong's magic was already equivalent to the level of a 7-crown demon master. Moreover, his Phoenix Dance Dragon Snake transformation was very powerful. The defensive power of the Vermilion Bird transformation, the toughness of the body soaked in dragon blood, and the fusion of the Flying Serpent transformation. Although Lucar's attack was strong, it was still easily resolved by the Flying Serpent transformation that he had comprehended to a deeper level. In these 4 years, it could be said that Ji-Dong did not practice any of his other skills, but he did not stop practicing the Flying Serpent transformation for even a moment. In order to absorb more magic, and to reduce the damage caused by the huge amount of magic, it could be said that the Flying Serpent transformation had not stopped practicing the Flying Serpent transformation for more than 1,000 days and nights. Ji-Dong's understanding of this skill had already reached the point of perfection. Although it couldn't be said to be comparable to the Flying Serpent's main body, he could be considered the number 1 person under the Flying Serpent. Now that he had a deeper understanding of the Flying Serpent transformation, this skill was not as simple as passively taking hits. When the opponent's magic was higher than his, he could also use it in direct combat. The sudden increase in magic from Lucar's armor did indeed surprise Ji-Dong, but it was still far from being able to withstand the Flying Serpent transformation. Hence, he only paused for a moment before dispelling the impact of the magic. The second move of the Blazing Sun's 3 consecutive strikes was unleashed. At the same time, the 10 ultimate dual fireballs released by the 2 fire elementals also exploded around the 2 of them. The terrifying fire elements scattered in all directions, and the 2 colors of gold and black formed a huge barrier, forcibly isolating the other experts from the Golden Eagle Chamber of Commerce. The dense fire elements made Ji-Dong's Flaming Monarch body so clear that it was almost tangible. It could be seen that the spike on his right shoulder was about to collide with Lucar's palm. The Demon Monarch Yin-Yang armor was a demigod-level armor. Not only did it have an astonishing defense, it also had a powerful amplification effect on Ji-Dong's own magic. Once the Flaming Monarch body made contact with his opponent, Ji-Dong's body would definitely be able to rush forward. As long as the spike touched Lucar, the battle would be over. Lucar was afraid. He was really afraid. This was the first time he had met such a powerful young man. At this crucial moment, his battle experience and magic power could no longer save him. What truly saved him was the financial resources of the Golden Eagle Chamber of Commerce. A ray of earthen yellow light instantly blossomed, and a huge, oval-shaped wall of earth, 10 meters tall and 3 meters thick, forcibly separated Ji-Dong and Lucar from each other. The defensive power of the earth wall was simply too astonishing. It forcefully pushed away Ji-Dong's Flaming Monarch body, and Ji-Dong's Scorching Sun Collapse also collided with this earth wall. Amidst the loud bang, the earth wall was forcibly smashed into a 3-meter-tall humanoid shape. However, it was indeed too thick. Although there were cracks on it, it still did not shatter. Lucar also took advantage of this short period of time to urge the bramble with demonic dragon beneath him to retreat rapidly. At the same time, he pointed the spear in his hand forward, and thousands of spear shadows appeared, piercing towards the earth wall with powerful magic power. As the bramble with demonic dragon retreated, it turned its body and swept its 3-meter-long tail towards the earth wall. Lucar's ability to grasp the timing was not weak. Just before the spear shadow landed on the earth wall had already exploded. The tyrant's golden figure appeared, and dust flew everywhere. Lucar's attack and the bramble with demonic dragon's tail also arrived at this moment, forming a pincer attack. From the beginning of the battle until now, First Wood Heavenly Master Lucar had finally managed to take back the initiative. Scroll, Ji-dong shouted in a low voice. That's right. The reason why Lucar was able to turn the situation around and block his attack was because he relied on an Earth Element defense scroll. With the defense magic skill in the scroll, he had the chance to fight back. The situation suddenly became a little disadvantageous for Ji-dong. The effect of the ultimate double fireball explosion had disappeared. The 9-6 Crowns powerhouses each summoned their magical beast mounts and surrounded Ji-dong. Lucar, who had caught his breath, also unleashed a powerful joint attack with his magical beast. Ji-dong was completely surrounded. Flaming Bar stood there with her back, facing Ji-dong. Although she did not look with her eyes, nothing on the battlefield could escape her perception. At this moment, she did not reveal a trace of nervousness or worry. If Ji-dong could not break through the encirclement, then wouldn't the previous 4 years have been a waste of time? She had absolute confidence in Ji-dong. A dazzling golden light suddenly burst out from the flame monarch's body. Ji-dong pressed his hands down, and then his whole body began to spin in the air. Circles of dazzling golden light burst out. Although Lucar's attack was strong, it could not penetrate the range of the golden light. It was the Flame Monarch's skill, Flaming Sunspin. Facing the Bramblewood Demon Dragon's tail that was like a heavy hammer, Ji-dong's right hand revealed the Flame Monarch's body as he rotated. Seeing his seemingly gentle palm, Lucar's pupils immediately contracted. He still clearly remembered that it was this palm that turned Maha's flaming lion into a fireball. It cannot be more dead. Little Blue, quickly stop. After all, magical beasts did not have the reaction speed of humans. Lucar's reminder was a step too late. Ji-dong's body in the air was sent flying by the Bramblewood Demon Dragon's giant tail. He flew diagonally, but it was also in this short moment that the Bramblewood Demon Dragon let out a shrill cry. The next scene shocked Lucar even more. The Bramblewood Demon Dragon's tail was 4 meters long. The tip was especially thick, and there were fine protrusions on it. When it was swung, it was like a giant spiked hammer. It was extremely lethal. But at this moment, the thick end of the tail opened up, and a violent explosion sounded from within. Boom, 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 boom. With every explosion, 0.5 meter the tail would explode and turn into golden flames. When the last explosion sounded, the Bramblewood Demon Dragons but was already burning with a large patch of golden light. It was a blooming chrysanthemum. Although it was not fatal, such a heavy injury was unbearable for the Bramblewood Demon Dragon. It roared crazily and rolled on the ground, throwing Lucar's body into the air. God-slaying strike, what a God-slaying strike. Ji-dong was in the air and could not help but sigh in admiration. At this moment, at least 4 6-crown level demon masters had already locked onto his body. They did not hesitate at all. 4 killing techniques of different attributes were released at the same time, directly bombarding Ji-dong. Although Ji-dong had a pair of wings on his back, he was currently being sent flying. It was not easy for him to change direction or speed up. The 4 of them surrounded Ji-dong. They had to kill Ji-dong in one blow. On the sinister mask of the Jun Mo Yin-yang armor, a bloody halo flowed in the eyes. The cold killing intent did not change at all. Facing the simultaneous attacks from 4 directions, Ji-dong's body twisted strangely in the air. In the next moment, he had already turned into a stream of light and flashed to another position. Wax Snake Flash, This powerful ability that could instantly break the opponent's lock once again showed its terrifying effect on the battlefield. Although the experts of the Golden Eagle Chamber of Commerce in front of him were all six-crowned demon masters, they could not release an omnidirectional locking ability like the Dark Emu Saint Scorpion and completely lock down an area to restrict Jidong. A strong magic explosion exploded where Jidong was a moment ago. A gunmetal-type demon master that was attacking Jidong did not have time to be happy. Suddenly, he found that a sinister metal face had already appeared in front of him. His left hand slashed, and black flames quietly swept out. His right hand struck down, and a golden palm imprinted on the head of the demon master's mount. Relying on a deeper level of wax snake flash, Jidong appeared as if he had teleported in front of the demon master that had just released his killing technique. With a soft poof, the demon beast beneath the demon master had already solidified. A sixth-order demon beast had no chance against a six-crowned demon master, let alone the tyrant concubine, who had the ultimate dual fire element. The god-slaying strike was easily imprinted on the demon beast's body. The feeling of the flames was cold. Tang Jin Tianshi only felt his whole body freeze in the cold. The bloody eyes under the metal mask enlarged in his pupils. In the next moment, he had already lost all consciousness. After being hit by the Dark Moon Claw, his magic power couldn't resist at all. Black gold, black gold, black gold, black gold. The two-colored light shone 6 times, and 5 roars sounded like the most rhythmic melody. The tyrant demon king, Ji, used his self-created skill, 6 curses. Spreading his wings, he did not even look at his opponent who had already turned into ashes, and 2 more sure-kill attacks swept past Jidong's body. In the air, his body that was flickering with dazzling flames was like a stream of light that was filled with edges and corners. No one could grasp his position, and no one could escape from his attack. Lucar only felt a wave of dizziness in front of him, and 3 more Heaven Realm warriors, along with their mounts, had already turned into a raging inferno. Hundreds of golden red lights scattered in all directions. They first flew into the sky, then floated down. At the same time, dozens of black and gold fireballs flew out. The target of these attacks was the Golden Eagle Chamber of Commerce behind Lucar. The Dragon Scale Flash and the ultimate dual fireballs had completely disrupted the Golden Eagle Chamber of Commerce's rhythm. There was no time to stop them. In the forest that was originally filled with the aura of life, a sea of fire exploded in the roar. Countless screams and wails rang out one after another. From this moment on, Jidong truly began his harvest of life. His thinking was very simple. Life that did not respect other life had no need to continue living. His heart was as cold as iron and stone. The anger that he had felt when he saw the corpse of the forest demon had completely exploded at this moment. The black and white Tai Chi diagram appeared behind him and slowly rotated. In this Tai Chi diagram, the yin and yang fire bloomed when condensed into a formation. Not a single bit of fire element in the air was wasted. Every skill burned the enemy's body, and in the next moment, the fire element would be condensed back into the formation. Jidong did not look for Lucar for the time being. However, Lucar was about to go crazy. Chapter 193. Terrifying mana was released slowly in the air. Jidong's face revealed a cold glow. His body would not stay in one place for more than 2 breaths of time. The Flying Serpent Flash was fully activated. Sometimes it could be seen that he was clearly charging forward, but in the next moment, his body had already moved backwards. Streaks of fiery light formed lines of death in the air. Every time he paused, at least one demon master from the Golden Eagle Chamber of Commerce would perish under Jidong's ultimate dual flames. The last time he had entered the holy evil battlefield, Jidong's wax serpent flash could only be completed twice. He had relied on his own strength to render 2 dark saints who were over level 50 helpless, and had even almost killed them. Now, his mana had broken through 2 barriers and had risen to level 61. With the support of his powerful mana, the Flying Serpent Flash could be completed 4 times. If a powerhouse like Ji-dong was able to continuously change directions 4 times in the air, who would be able to catch his figure? Not to mention the 7 crowns Lu Kar, even an 8 crowns heavenly sovereign powerhouse would not be able to do so. Right now, all they could do was run for their lives to chase after him, or use their area of effect demonic techniques to attack. However, the area of effect attacks that were dispersed would be useless against Ji-dong, who had the Tyrant Devil Yin-Yang armor, the Phoenix Dance Dragon Snake transformation, and the Flying Serpent transformation. Lu Kar finally realized the severity of the problem. It was not that he had not thought of attacking the flaming bar, but Ji-dong was already so strong. How could the woman with him be weak? Furthermore, there was a powerful Class 6 magical beast of unknown species waiting there. How could a Class 7 magical beast be easy to deal with? A Class 6 magical beast that could make a Class 7 magical beast tremble in fear. If he attacked that woman, there was no doubt that he would be the first to bear the brunt of Ji-dong's violent retaliation. Making a prompt decision, Kar roared, "Retreat!" More than 30 magicians from the Golden Eagle Chamber of Commerce had died in the hands of Ji-dong. Among them, 6 were at the level of 6 crowns. It was definitely a heavy loss. However, if they did not retreat now, no one knew how much magic power this terrifying young man had left and how long he could continue fighting. From his current state, it seemed as if he had not consumed any magic power at all. If this continued, perhaps they would all be wiped out, and even they themselves would not be able to leave this place alive. The remnants of the Golden Eagle Merchant Guild retreated rapidly. Although they were in a state of panic under Ji-dong's powerful attacks, they were of high quality and their formation did not fall apart as they retreated. This was especially so for Lu Kar and the other enchanters. They gathered together and focused all their attention on Ji-dong as they retreated slowly. With a flash of light, Ji-dong calmly stopped and landed on the ground. He watched as the Golden Eagle Merchant Guild slowly retreated. In a battle just now, the Golden Eagle Merchant Guild had already lost more than 200 people. All of them had fallen to his magic skills. Slightly panting, Ji-dong slowly recovered his magic power. His eyes flashed with an uncertain light. According to his temper, he would not rest until he had killed every single one of these people. However, he had no choice but to restrain himself right now. This was because he still had to protect the flaming bar. In his heart, there was nothing more important than protecting the flaming bar. It was not impossible for him to kill all these people. After his magic power had increased to 6 crowns, his 6 crowns relied on the yin-yang fire to sustain the formation. It contained the power of 6 dragons and 6 snakes. With this huge amount of magic power and little flame, he could unleash his ultimate skill, world of yin and yang of sun and moon. With the terrifying power of the world of yin and yang of sun and moon, not a single person from the Golden Eagle Merchant Guild would be able to escape. However, if that happened, Ji-dong would fall into a state of weakness. He would not have a backup plan. If he were to encounter another strong opponent, how would he protect the flaming bar? Therefore, after much consideration, he gave up on the idea of chasing after them and allowed them to leave. The Golden Eagle Merchant Guild's retreat was extremely hasty. They did not even have the time to bring away the corpses of their own people. In addition to the devastation caused by the ultimate dual flames, the area of thousands of square meters was like hell. 2 rays of light flew out from Ji-dong's shoulders. They were the Holy Fire elemental body and the Devil Flame elemental body. Although these 2 elemental bodies could not truly determine the outcome of the battle, they could be used to clean up the battlefield. As their figures flickered, all the burning flames were absorbed by them. They were perfect for extinguishing fires. Ji-dong walked back to the side of the flaming bar. He looked at Elder Tam and the group of forest demons who were standing in front of him and coughed slightly. Everything that had happened was too fast. It was so fast that they did not even have time to react. From the time Ji-dong attacked until the end of the battle, only the time it took for half an incense stick to burn had passed. Looking at Ji-dong, who was wearing the Devil Lord Yin-yang armor, these weak forest demons felt as if a demon god had appeared in front of them. Even though Ji-dong had helped them chase away their strong enemies, They could not help but reveal expressions of fear at this moment. The flaming bar's gentle voice sounded, "You don't have to be afraid. We were just passing by and happened to see the Golden Eagle Merchant Association slaughtering your people. We saw that it was unfair, so we attacked. We have no ill intentions. Jidong, let's go." As she spoke, she personally tied the silver chain that Jidong had previously untied around his waist. Then, she pulled Jidong's hand and walked towards the depths of the Forest of Life. If they wanted to return to the Middle Earth Empire, they could pass through the Forest of Life and keep heading west. They could save a lot of time. This was also an important reason why Jidong had decided to pass through here. Jidong looked at the flaming bar in surprise. After he had cultivated the soul fire, their soul realms were connected. Even if they did not open their mouths, they could still communicate with each other. Their souls rippled, and he asked the flaming bar, "Flaming bar, aren't we going to taste the source of life?" As he spoke, he raised his hand and called Little Flame back to his side. Little Flame did not return to the vermilion burr bracelet. Instead, it spread its wings and soared above Jidong and the flaming bar. The flaming bar's voice directly sounded in the depths of Jidong's soul. "Forget it. So many of the forest demons have died, and it was because of the source of life. Wouldn't it be taking advantage of them if we were to offer to buy it now? I don't want them to think that we are trying to repay their kindness. Jidong, you have become more mature than before. If it was in the past, you would definitely release your full strength to kill the people of the Golden Eagle Merchant Association. However, you did not do so today. I know that it is because of me, but I hope that you will always be like this in the future. Regardless of whether I am by your side or not, a wise man will not stand under a collapsing wall. No matter what, you must always leave a way out for yourself. Unless you have a partner that you can absolutely trust by your side, don't easily release your full strength." Jidong nodded and said, "I understand." At this moment, the voice of the Forest Demon Tribe's elder Tmu came from behind the two of them. "Wait a moment. My two benefactors, please wait a moment." Jidong held onto the flaming bar's hand and turned around. At the same time, he retrieved his Demon Monarch yin-yang armor. Without the hideous mask, Jidong looked a lot less oppressive. Elder Tmu's face was filled with shame as he quickly ran over with his clansmen. Before he could reach Jidong and the flaming bar, he had already knelt on the ground with a thud. Thousands of forest demons immediately knelt down. "Elder, what are you doing?" Jidong hurriedly took a step forward and raised his right hand. A gentle magical power lifted Elder Tmu up from the ground. This was not the extreme yang fire or the extreme yin fire. It was a gentle magical power that was produced after he comprehended the soul fire. It did not have any attributes and was infinitely close to the aura of primal chaos. This aura could not be used as an offensive or defensive power, but it was still very useful, especially when it came to cultivation. Elder Tmu was helped up by Jidong. His body was trembling slightly as he said, "My two benefactors, I was momentarily blinded by sorrow and treated you poorly. Please forgive me. If it wasn't for your help today, I'm afraid our tribe would have been destroyed by those evil humans. I, Tmu, and my clansmen will never forget such a great favor. Please stay for a few more days and let us show our hospitality to you." Jidong sighed and said, "Elder Tmu, we appreciate your kindness. However, your tribe has just suffered such a heavy blow, and there are too many things waiting for you to handle. We will not disturb you any further. If there's a chance in the future, we will definitely visit you again." The flaming bar was right. The forest demon tribe had just suffered such a heavy blow. Although they had helped the forest demons solve their problem, they were still humans after all. There was no point in staying any longer. It was better to leave through the Forest of Life as soon as possible. When Elder Ta Hao saw that Jidong and the flaming bar were determined to leave, he hurriedly said, "My two benefactors, can you listen to a few words from this old man?" Jidong said, "Please speak, Elder." Elder Ta Hao sighed. His eyes were filled with sorrow and pain as he said, "For thousands of years, we, the forest demons, have always lived in the Forest of Life. We are a nation that refuses to make any progress. We have been working hard every day, using our familiarity with plants to cultivate all kinds of plants to make the forest of life a better place. We have also received the blessing of the goddess of life, allowing us to continue to survive. My hundreds of thousands of clansmen and I have become the masters of this forest. In the beginning, when the humans entered the forest of life, they were quite friendly to us. Most of them came to sightsee. We, the forest demons, are kind and hospitable. We don't know how cunning and treacherous the outside world can be. Not only did we not reject them from entering the forest of life, we were even willing to be their guides, introducing them to all kinds of magical things in the forest of life. Later on, when they tasted the source of life we brewed, they expressed their desire to buy it. Living in the forest of life, we are self-sufficient and don't need money. Therefore, we allowed them to exchange some necessities of the human world, such as the cores of magical beasts, for the source of life. However, as more and more humans came to the forest of life to make a fortune, it began to affect our daily lives and destroy our environment. About a few years ago, the leaders of the various forest fae tribes decided to refuse any form of trade with humans in order to prevent the forest of life from being destroyed by humans, in order to ensure the peace and happiness of the forest of life. After the human merchant groups were rejected by us, they bared their fangs. Today's attack was not the first time the humans attacked us. They came with the intention of destroying us, slaughtering our tribesmen, plundering our source of life, and even trying to enslave us. It is much more difficult for us forest fae to become demon masters than humans. We have hundreds of thousands of demon masters, but we only managed to form a team of less than 200 people. Moreover, our strength is far inferior to that of humans. We don't have magical weapons, and our bodies are far weaker than humans. In just 3 years, more than 1/5 of our tribesmen have been slaughtered, and we have no choice but to retreat deeper into the forest of life. Even so, it is still difficult for us to resist the hunting teams of those large merchant groups. If it weren't for our 2 benefactors, I'm afraid that our tribe would really be finished today. Even if we manage to avoid this, they will not let us go. There will definitely be a next time. If this goes on, I'm afraid that our tribe will really be wiped out before long. 2 streams of turbid green tears flowed down his cheeks. Because of his agitation, Elder Tom could not help but tremble. He was only able to stand firm after being supported by 2 sturdy adult forest fae behind him. Ji-dong frowned slightly. He sympathized with the plight of the forest fae, but how was he going to resolve the crisis of his tribe? Elder Tom panted heavily. Benefactors, I can see that you are both humans with great abilities. More importantly, you are different from those despicable fellows. You have hearts of gold, and you have selflessly helped us, saving our tribe from the disaster. I have a presumptuous request, and I hope that you can agree to it. Ji-dong said, Elder, please speak. Elder Tom said, Our forest fae tribe is at a critical juncture of life and death. We clearly saw the strength that you have displayed just now. You were able to defeat the powerful Golden Eagle Commerce all by yourself. I would like to represent our forest fae tribe to hire the 2 of you to protect our tribe and protect us from those despicable humans. Ji-dong was slightly stunned by Elder Tom's words. He shook his head and said, I'm sorry, Elder Tom. I'm afraid that I cannot agree to your request. I sympathize with your tribe's plight, but I have many things that I need to do, and I cannot stay in the forest of life forever. So, I'm sorry, I'm powerless. He had too many things to do. Putting aside the fact that he hoped to travel the mainland with Flaming Bar, he had to go to the battle between the Holy and Demon in a year's time. Once he heard Ji-dong's rejection, Elder Tom hurriedly said, Benefactor, although our forest fae tribe has been in the forest of life for generations, we have accumulated quite a lot of wealth from doing business with humans. We are willing to pay a high price for your protection. Please, if you are not willing to help us, I'm afraid that it will not be long before our entire tribe. Chapter 194. Ji-dong could not help but frown at Elder Tom's request. It was not that he was unwilling to help these forest demons, but how exactly could he help them? Seeing that Ji-dong was hesitating, Elder Tom thought that he was hesitating, so he hurriedly continued, "Benefactor, as long as you are willing to stay, we are willing to use all the savings of our tribe in exchange for your protection. No matter how much money or resources you need, we are willing to pay." Dong shook his head and said, "Elder Tom, this is not a problem of money. I have a lot of things to deal with, so I can't stay here and protect you all. I can understand that you want to hire a strong person to protect you, but this is not a long-term solution. If you hire the wrong person, I'm afraid that your ending will be even more miserable." Hearing Dong's words, Elder Tom could not help but lower his head and said sadly, "Could it be that the forest demon tribe really has to go extinct?" At this moment, Flaming Bar, who had been silent all this while, suddenly said, "Elder Tom, for the sake of the tribe's safety, are you willing to migrate?" Dong was stunned and asked Flaming Bar, "Are you asking them to migrate to the Earth's core?" Flaming Bar shook his head and looked at Elder Tom through the veil, waiting for his answer. Elder Tom said hesitantly, "We, the Forest Demon Tribe, have always lived in the Forest of Life. This is our home, and also the place where the Goddess of Life has blessed us. If we leave our home, I'm afraid." The Flaming Bar sighed softly and said, "Elder Tam, ever since we entered the Forest of Life, I can feel the effect that you forest demons have on the forest. Although you do not have great power, you have an innate talent for plants. You can use your own strength to better nurture all kinds of plants and help them reproduce. This is also the reason why the Forest of Life is so lush and full of vitality. However, have you ever thought about why you are facing such a crisis? The reason is very simple. It's because you're too weak. You only have the ability to take care of the forest, but you don't have the power to protect it. What you need isn't to hire a powerhouse to protect you, but to find a powerful ally that can truly protect you. These allies shouldn't be humans, but magical beasts. Simply put, if there were a large number of magical beasts in the Forest of Life, would those merchant associations still send an army to deal with you? Magical beasts? The Tower daughter-in-law was taken aback. But magical beasts are more ferocious than humans. They don't have the intelligence of humans, so they'll treat us as food. The Flaming Bar shook his head and said, "If you can form a symbiotic relationship with at least one species of magical beasts, why would they harm you? Therefore, if you want the Forest Demon Tribe to continue to thrive, you must change your home. Only then will you have a chance to survive. This is natural protection." Dong's eyes flashed. He had already roughly grasped the meaning of the Flaming Bar's words. He thought quickly and said to the Flaming Bar, "Are you talking about the Earth Spirit Mountain range?" The Flaming Bar smiled and nodded. "There are many powerful magical beasts there. Furthermore, with your relationship, you'll naturally be able to help them. If the forest demons are willing, I think we should help them. Although they'll have to leave the Forest of Life, it won't take many years for them to turn the Earth Spirit Mountain range into another Forest of Life." Dong nodded. The Flaming Bar's words were indeed feasible. With his relationship with the Fire Divine Beast, the Vermilion Bird, it shouldn't be a problem for the Forest Demons to live in the Earth Spirit Mountain range. The Vermilion Bird was the strongest in the Earth Spirit Mountain range. Who would dare to touch the Forest Demons if she gave the order? Furthermore, if the Forest Demons lived in the Earth Spirit Mountain range and cultivated various plants, it would only benefit the magical beasts there. Under the threat of the Vermilion Bird and the symbiotic relationship between the Forest Demons and the Forest Demons, it was highly possible for the Forest Demons to survive in the Earth Spirit Mountain range. Dong turned to Elder Tom and said, "Elder, you've heard our suggestion. For the Forest Demon Tribe, this is the best solution. If you trust me, I'm willing to help you. I'll lead you to the Earth Spirit Mountain range in the Middle Earth Empire. There are powerful magical beasts there. I have a certain relationship with the king of the magical beasts there. It shouldn't be a problem for me to arrange for you to be stationed there." Tom hesitated. He looked at Dong and the Flaming Bar with flickering eyes. He shook his head gently and said, "My two benefactors, this matter is of great importance. It's not something that I can make the decision on. If you're willing, I'll immediately request for a meeting of the Forest Demon Elders to discuss this matter." I know that both of you are thinking for the sake of the forest demon tribe. However, this matter involves the place where the forest demon tribe has been living for thousands of years. It's of great importance. Jidong nodded and said, "We can understand your feelings, Elder. If that's the case, we'll stay here for a few more days and wait for your news." Tom nodded with a heavy heart. In theory, Jidong and the flaming bar suggestion was feasible. However, it involved the life and death of the entire forest demon tribe. He was also in a dilemma. He stole glances at Hyoheim and the flaming bar from time to time. His eyes were filled with hesitation. All these years, they had been persecuted by the humans. Even if Jidong and the flaming bar had just saved their tribe, it was impossible for him to completely trust these two outsiders. Jidong naturally felt Elder Tom's gaze. However, he didn't have any ulterior motives, so he faced it calmly. "Callum, bring the two benefactors to our tribe to rest. Bynum, come with me to gather the elders for a meeting." The two strong forest demons quickly responded. One of them led Jidong and the flaming bar into the forest of life. The two fire elementals returned to Jidong's side at the same time. Their bodies had expanded again, and they were still absorbing the magical elements in the air. Jidong was their master, and their aura was completely controlled by Jidong. Therefore, they couldn't leave Jidong's range. The closer they were to Jidong, the faster they could absorb the magical elements. The smell of blood in the air gradually faded. After entering the forest of life, all kinds of exotic flowers and plants appeared in front of Jidong and the flaming bar. In this dense forest, all kinds of plants grew in an orderly manner. Their branches and leaves were luxuriant. It could be seen that the forest demons were very good at taking care of the forest. Some of the fruits that could be seen in the outside world were much larger here, and they were filled with the aura of life that couldn't be found in the outside world. Without a doubt, this was the best place for health. Callum the forest demon led the way, and it didn't take long for Jidong to hear the sound of water splashing. There was actually a small stream flowing in the forest. The water was clear, and there were no impurities at all. Even if he looked at it with his eyes, he could almost feel the sweetness in it. The trees on both sides of the stream were surrounded by vines that covered the sky. Only a tiny bit of sunlight could penetrate the leaves and vines and land on the ground. The moist and fresh air carried the strong fragrance of plants and the aura of life, giving people an indescribable sense of joy. Callum said very respectfully, "Benefactors, this is where we live. We'll be living up there. If you don't mind, you can stay here for now." Jidong was a little surprised. A tree house based on vines? He had already noticed that the trees here were very strange. The branches weren't very tall, but they were very dense. "Benefactors, please follow me." As he spoke, Callum had already climbed up a big tree next to him. Jidong held the flaming bar's hand and leaped into the air. They went straight into the treetop through a gap. Compared to the surrounding hound trees, this treetop was more luxuriant. The interior was oval and completely made up of vines and thick branches that were as thick as an arm. Apart from the gaps where they came in, there were only some very small gaps where they could see outside. Not only was the air in the treehouse fresher, but the vitality was also denser than the outside world. The layout of the treehouse was very simple. There was only a bed made of huge banana leaves. Callum made a gesture of invitation and said, "Benefactors, please take a rest first. I'll go and get some fruits to entertain you." Jidong nodded slightly and said, "Thank you." Callum said fearfully, "Benefactor, please don't say that. Without you, I might be a corpse now." As he spoke, he quickly retreated from the treehouse. The flaming bar took off the bamboo hat on her head with some excitement. She picked it up gently on the treehouse and said with a smile, "The outside world is still the best. It's full of wonders everywhere. This treehouse is actually formed naturally. The power of creation from chaos is really amazing." At that moment, she was like a curious girl who had seen a strange world. She didn't look like the ruler of the core world at all. Seeing the flaming bar smile was the greatest satisfaction for Jidong. He smiled and said, "If you like it, we can stay here for a while." The flaming bar took off her shoes, walked to the thick banana leaves, and lay down. She put her hands behind her head and looked at the top of the treehouse. It's really comfortable here. The life of the forest demons is simple and pure. It's similar to my life in the core world. However, everything here is much richer than the core world. After coming out with you, I didn't want to go back to the core world. The last time I came to the outside world, I walked around by myself. I saw many superficial things and the mutual deceptions of you humans. Now that I'm by your side, the feeling seems to have changed completely. It's as if everything I see is so fresh and full of attraction. Thank you, Jidong. I'm very happy now. Jidong smiled and said, I should be the one thanking you. I've never had a good look at this world. Now that I finally have time and you're by my side, this is like the life of a deity to me. The flaming bar shook her head gently and said, No, you're wrong. The life of a deity isn't necessarily perfect. What do you mean by deity? Deity can be said to be another name for a deity. Jidong said helplessly. He couldn't tell the flaming bar that he came from another world. After all, it didn't take long before Callum climbed up with a small rattan basket on his back. He put down the basket, took out a plate-sized leaf, and placed it in front of Jidong and the flaming bar. Then he took out more than 10 fruits from the basket and placed them on the leaf. These fruits still had water droplets on them. It was obvious that they had just been picked and washed. There were more than 10 fruits, but none of them were the same. There were all kinds of fruits. Some were sparkling and translucent like rubies. Some were milky white and slightly round like boiled eggs. And there were even clear green fruits with an intoxicating transparency, as clear and translucent as jade. They didn't look like food at all. Instead, they looked more like rare treasures presented in front of the two. The rich fragrance and rich life energy were all refreshing. Jidong couldn't help but say, These are all the masterpieces of nature. Callum gave a silly smile and said, Please have a taste, benefactors. These are the specialties of our forest of life. Without the protection of a strong life force, they will rot within a day after being picked, so you can't eat them outside of the forest of life. Just as he said that, his eyes suddenly glazed over, and he stared fixedly at raging flames with his mouth wide open. When he had just climbed up the treehouse, his mind had been focused on placing the fruits. Now that he looked up, he saw that raging flames had taken off her veil. His gaze was completely frozen, and he couldn't say a single word. What was funny was that his light green tongue was actually twitching. Jidong coughed with slight dissatisfaction. Although he could understand Callum's current state of mind, he still felt a little uncomfortable that his goddess was being stared at like that. Praise the goddess of life, oh my god. Are you the descent of the goddess of life? As a member of the forest demons, Callum didn't have many words to describe himself. The radiance of the flaming bar had already made this forest demon fall into an indescribable shock. There was no blasphemy at all. It was purely an appreciation of beauty from the bottom of his heart. Raging flames smiled like 10,000 flowers blooming. The treehouse seemed to light up under her smile. Her smile didn't matter, but with a puff, 2 lines of blood gushed out from Callum's nose. Fortunately, Jidong reacted quickly and pulled up a leaf to block the blood. I'm sorry. Callum hurriedly lowered his head. He really didn't dare to look at the flaming bar anymore. He turned around and crawled down the treehouse, but his limbs went soft, and he fell with a thud. Fortunately, there were many plants under the treehouse. Callum turned over and got up from the ground. He was still mumbling, Praise the goddess of life. Praise the goddess of life. Oh my god. What did I just see? Under the dumbfounded gaze of Jidong, this forest demon scrambled away. The flaming bar gently touched her face and then looked at Jidong. She softly said, We must help these forest demons. They are so innocent and cute. Such a pure and loving race shouldn't go extinct just like that. Chapter 195. After listening to the flaming bar, Jidong nodded in agreement and said, Have some fruits first. I'll try my best to convince the forest demons. The flaming bar looked at the fresh fruits and asked softly, Jidong, can I try every single one of them? Jidong nodded and said, Of course you can. Eat them all. As long as the flaming bar liked the fruits, it was not a big deal for him to eat less. However, he soon realized that he had misunderstood. The flaming bar took a piece of fruit and bit into it. A small piece of flesh along with the fragrant juice flowed into her red lips. Jidong was stunned as he looked at her tender lips and white teeth. At that moment, the flaming bar passed the fruit that she had taken a bite of to Jidong. Is she going to eat these fruits with me? Jidong was stunned, but he quickly reacted. He quickly took the fruit that the flaming bar had taken a bite of and put it into his mouth without hesitation. He did not even have the time to savor the taste of the fruit as a strange feeling filled his heart. That was a fruit that the flaming bar had bitten. Unknowingly, Jidong realized that his relationship with the flaming bar had deepened. The flaming bar could not help but chuckle when she saw Jidong's silly look. Her cheeks blushed, and she looked even more charming. She then took the second piece of fruit and gave it to Jidong after taking a bite, just like before. What was happiness? To have someone deliver a bowl of meat soup to you when you are extremely hungry is a blessing. To have someone deliver you a bowl of meat soup when you are in extreme hunger is a blessing. To see the toilet when your stomach is in pain is a blessing. And for Jidong, eating the fruit that the goddess in his heart has bitten off was the greatest blessing for him. The two of them ate quietly in the tranquil treehouse. It did not take long for them to finish all the fruits. Most of them ended up in Jidong's stomach. Unfortunately, he was wasting resources recklessly and did not taste anything special. His attention was completely focused on the flaming bar's moving red lips and white teeth. Silly, what are you looking at? The flaming bar was slightly annoyed. Jidong chuckled and said, I can't get enough of looking at you forever. You always amaze me no matter when I see you. The flaming bar chuckled and said, A few years ago, you were still a child. A few years later, you already know how to say such things to me. Looks like my Jidong has really grown up. Jidong puffed out his chest in dissatisfaction and said, Am I very young? The flaming bar chuckled and said, All right, you're not young anymore. That's enough. Jidong, when you were fighting with the people from the Golden Eagle Merchant Association today, do you still remember the skill that the 7-crown armored wood magician used? Jidong nodded and said, Of course, if he did not use a scroll in time to defend himself, he would not have been able to withstand my chain of attacks. The smile on the flaming bar's face disappeared, and he nodded and said, What I want to talk to you about is the problem of magic skill scrolls. A human's power is always limited, even for a god. Magic skill scrolls can be said to be the fundamental solution to this problem. Just like your yin-yang dual fire formation, it can allow your yin-yang crown to store a huge amount of magic. When necessary, it can even help you release a super ultimate skill like the sun-moon yin-yang world. However, even if your magic reaches the level of a 9 crown, the amount of magic you can store is still limited. I think you should start learning how to make magic skill scrolls now. Jidong's heart skipped a beat, and he said, You want to teach me how to make magic skill scrolls? The flaming bar shook his head and said, Magic skill scrolls are useless to me, and I don't know how to make them. Do you still remember the book that the soaring serpent gave you? That is the basic method of making magic skill scrolls. The words on it are ancient records, and I can recognize them. Take out the book. Jidong hurriedly took out the book that soaring serpent had given him. The book was not thick, and the first 10 pages were filled with some strange diagrams and written explanations of the 10 different types of magic, while the last few pages were filled with some methods of making something. The flaming bar took the book and said, This book is the basic method of making magic skill scrolls. To any magus, making magic skill scrolls is not an easy task. According to my memory, when you human magi make magic skill scrolls, the probability of failure is at least 90%. The more powerful the magic skill scroll, the higher the probability of failure. The book that the soaring serpent gave you, the first 10 pages separately recorded the methods of making magic skill scrolls of the 10 different types. The last 3 pages separately recorded the methods of making magic skill scrolls. There are 3 types of magic skill scrolls, the ultimate skill scrolls and the super ultimate skill scrolls. The material requirements are naturally very different. Jidong asked doubtfully, Since it is so difficult to make magic skill scrolls, why is there only 1 page for each type of magic skill scrolls? The flaming bar said, That is why I said it is the basic method of making magic skill scrolls. When every magus is making magic skill scrolls, they can't just do whatever they want. They can only brand the magic skill they are good at on the scroll. If they want to make a magic skill scroll that combines magic skill scrolls, they need many magi of different types to make it at the same time. But the success rate is even lower. What this book records is the method to brand the magic skill scrolls of each type. I took a brief look at it. The imprinting method and principle are the same as the sustaining array in your 5-elemental array. It's just been slightly modified. Read this book. As long as you're a magic master with strong financial support, you'll definitely be able to create a magic skill scroll after a long period of experimentation. Ji Dong asked doubtfully, "You need the financial support? Why? Isn't it just getting some special paper for magic skill scrolls?" The flaming bar shook his head and said, "Do you think it is so easy to get the special paper to make magic skill scrolls? It is not that easy. The requirements for these papers are extremely high. The most basic special paper for the magic skill scrolls requires a rank 3 essence crystal of the same magic skill attribute, mixed with more than 10 other precious materials to make it. And the special paper for the ultimate skill scrolls requires 3 rank 6 essence crystals as the foundation. Moreover, they must be from the same type of magical beast, so that there will not be any conflicts. As for the special paper for the ultimate skill scrolls, you need a rank 10 essence crystal as the foundation. Think about it. The success rate of making these scrolls is less than 10%. Just how many materials would be wasted? With your current strength, the ordinary magic skill scrolls will not be of much help to you. Only the ultimate skill can help you. You also have the ultimate magic, so when you make the special paper, you will need to use 3 times the materials of the ordinary special paper. And the 10% success rate I am talking about is when you can familiarize yourself with the production process. Who knows how much special paper you will need to use before you can familiarize yourself with it." The flaming bar's words made Ji Dong dumbstruck. After a while, he said helplessly, "As expected, it requires a huge amount of financial resources to support it. According to what you have said, if you want to train a magic skill scroll maker, you will need an astronomical amount of financial resources. Furthermore, the scrolls you make will be of unknown quality. No wonder the method of making magic skill scrolls was lost. Even if it wasn't lost, the only people in the world who have the ability and financial resources to research scrolls are the royal families and the large merchant associations. Since the creation of these scrolls is so difficult, I should just forget about it. Rather than wasting time and energy on researching it, I would rather cultivate and increase my strength." Raging Flame smiled and shook her head, saying, "No, I hope that you can work hard in this area. As long as you have enough magic skill scrolls, then, even if you meet the supreme experts of your human race, you will still be able to protect yourself." Ji Dong asked doubtfully, "But didn't you just say that it is extremely difficult to create magic skill scrolls?" The flaming bar said, "I hope that you can find your own path in this area, because you have many advantages that ordinary magic masters do not have. Through the soul fire, you can completely balance the yin and yang of your ultimate dual fire. When you control it, it will be much easier to transform your magic skill output into scrolls. The essence of chaos is creation, and creating scrolls is also a form of creation. With chaos as the foundation, your success rate will be much higher than ordinary magic masters. But that is not the main point. Most importantly, when you create magic skill scrolls, you do not need the special paper for magic skill scrolls. Therefore, the cost and price you have to pay will naturally be much lower. How do I make magic skill scrolls without the special paper for magic skill scrolls?" Ji Dong could not help but be slightly stunned after hearing the flaming bar's words. The flaming bar smiled and said, "Paper is a kind of medium. Because it can easily be combined with other materials, it becomes a carrier to carry magic power. That is why it is used to create magic skill scrolls. However, paper is not the only medium. You have a unique ability. Why must you use paper? If you use a medium, you will be completely different when you create magic skill scrolls." Ji Dong frowned and said, "I don't understand what you mean." The flaming bar smiled and said, "I am talking about wine. using wine as a medium to create magic skill scrolls. Wine? Jidong was shocked after hearing the flaming bar's words. He said, "How can wine be used to create magic skill scrolls? Wine is a liquid." The flaming bar said, "A liquid can also have a container. Wine itself is the fusion of the fire and water attributes, so it can also be a medium. As long as you integrate the crystal core powder into it, it is possible to create magic scrolls with wine as the foundation. This ability can be said to be unique. I have seen other bartenders in the past, but none of them could completely integrate their emotions into the wine like you. Although you are now a yin and yang magician, I can feel that in your bones, your true profession is still a bartender. Even when you're casting magic skills, you will not be completely immersed in it. Only when you're mixing wine is you truly yourself. You understand the characteristics of each wine and their emotions, so naturally, you will be able to understand what kind of magic they are most compatible with. I believe that as long as you are given some time, you will definitely be able to succeed. The most important thing for you now is to find what kind of wine can contain your extreme dual fire magic. Once you find it, I believe that when you make magic skill wine, your success rate will be infinitely close to 100%. Jidong's eyes flickered as he fell into deep thought. Although the flaming bar did not teach him how to do it, it had opened a new door for him. It had been 9 years since he knew the flaming bar. The flaming bar was right. Although he had been training hard and had become an outstanding yin and yang magician, in his bones, how could he forget the more than 30 years of his previous life? He was still the god of wine levying, still full of obsession with wine. When he could see the flaming bar, he would mix wine for her every day. Wasn't this also because of his nostalgia and understanding of wine? In Jidong's world, he had never forgotten about wine. He would never forget about it. If he could really combine wine with the yin and yang magician skills, then Jidong would feel happy from the bottom of his heart. He was the god of wine, and he was more than willing to become an unprecedented wine magician. Seeing that Jidong was deep in thought, the flaming bar did not disturb him. He just sat quietly at the side, put on his bamboo hat again, and accompanied him. At this time, unless there was someone better at mixing wine than Jidong, no one could help him. He had to rely on himself to understand everything. When a person was extremely focused, time often passed very quickly. Jidong no longer felt anything in the outside world. He was completely immersed in the mysterious world of wine and magic. Occasionally, he would take out various liquids from his vermilion burr bracelet and try to combine his magic with the liquids. After 2 days, the whole treehouse was filled with the rich aroma of wine and a large number of broken wine bottles and utensils. However, Jidong was still immersed in his thoughts. The flaming bar knew that Jidong had gradually found the way. The fact that he could maintain this state proved that his expectations could be realized. Jidong had the 5 elements formation, the flame of chaos, and the god of wine's ability to mix wine. If even he could not do it, then no one would ever be able to become a wine magician. Compared to the various expensive ingredients, wine was undoubtedly much cheaper. Moreover, the flaming bar judged that the success rate of making magic wine was terrifyingly high. Once Jidong really succeeded, he only needed to sell some magic wine, and he would receive almost endless financial support. Any country, any chamber of commerce, and any aristocrat would not mind having too many magic scrolls. On the morning of the 3rd day, early in the morning, Callum climbed up from downstairs and said, "Benefactors, the elder invites you." Chapter 196. Even though the flaming bar had already put on her bamboo hat, Callum still couldn't help but tremble when he saw her. He had never seen such a perfect woman before. Although forest demons couldn't be considered humans, they still looked like humans and had the same aesthetic standards as humans. The flaming bar's pleasant voice rang in Callum's ears while he was in a daze. "I'm afraid you'll have to wait for a while. I'll wake up Jidong first." Callum finally came back to his senses. He looked at Jidong worriedly and asked, "Is my benefactor all right?" The flaming bar smiled and said, "He's fine." Callum looked at the broken wine bottles in the treehouse and smelled the rich aroma of the wine. He couldn't help but wonder, is my benefactor a drunkard? If only he's willing to give me some wine. Human wine is really rare. The flaming bar's voice rang in Ji-dong's soul and woke him up from his deep thoughts. Ah, the flaming bar. The soul was the most sensitive. Ji-dong immediately woke up and looked at the flaming bar. He said excitedly, "I did it, the flaming bar. I believe I did it. I found the wine that's most suitable for my magic technique." This time, it was the flaming bar's turn to be surprised. "You found it? So soon?" One must know that there were many types of wine. What the flaming bar told Ji-dong before was just her assumption. It was easier said than done to find a wine that was completely compatible with the ultimate dual flames. 2 days. In just 2 days, Ji-dong had actually found the base wine that was suitable for making magic technique wine. Even a flaming bar found it unbelievable. Ji-dong said excitedly, "Yes, I found it." In my mind, I first filtered all the liquors I knew and also tried the effects of combining magic with liquors. I found that only liquors with alcohol purity above 40% could accept fire magic. Thus, I isolated the strong liquors and filtered them again, and tried them with all the liquors I had on me. Finally, I found some of the mysteries. The most suitable liquors to fuse with extreme yang fire is the whiskey brewed from wheat, and the most suitable liquors to fuse with extreme yin fire is the brandy brewed from grapes, also known as the water of life. I've already tried to fuse magic with these 2 liquors, and the degree of fusion is as high as 70%. In other words, if I can perfectly fuse magic with them, the power of the magic skill will be enough to retain 70% of the liquors in the liquors, and this percentage will increase as the alcohol density of the liquors increases. I made a simple calculation. To make a fatal skill scroll, each magic skill wine requires 3 rank 3 life crystals and a portion of 40% whiskey or brandy. To make a fatal skill scroll, I will need 3 life crystals of the same attribute above the 6th level and whiskey or brandy at 50%. As for the fatal skill scroll, it is still hard to say. Not only will I need to release a huge amount of magic power, but the requirements for the ingredients are also higher, and I am afraid that even a 60% liquor will not be able to meet the requirements. I will need to try a lot of things. Unfortunately, my whiskey and brandy have already been used up. Thank you, Flaming Bar. You have opened a new door for me. If I can really succeed, then I will be the true god of wine on the 5 Elements continent. Using wine as a scroll to attack, who would have thought? Haha, it was no wonder that he was so happy. The magic skill scroll had always been a problem that Ji-dong had been thinking about, but he could not find the right direction. After the Flaming Bar's reminder, he had already found the way in just 2 days. Furthermore, it was related to the wine that he was most familiar with. He had absolute confidence that he would be able to research the exact method to make the magic skill wine in the near future, and the success rate would not be low. With a top-grade storage magic tool like the Vermilion Bird Bracelet, how much magic skill wine could he carry? If he encountered a large-scale enemy, would he have any problems dealing with him? The Flaming Bar smiled and said, "I knew that you would definitely succeed. Let's not talk about this for now. Elder Tam has invited us." Oh, only then did Ji-dong wake up from his excited state. When he saw the broken wine bottles on the ground, he nodded at Callum a little embarrassedly and said, "Let's go now. I'll tidy up the things here." As he spoke, Ji-dong waved his hand, and the Holy Fire elemental body and Devil Flame elemental body that had been following him all along immediately moved. Gold and black flames swept across the ground. The ultimate dual fire did not cause any damage to the treehouse, but swept away all the broken wine bottles and wine shakers, turning them into gas and disappearing into the air. Even though Ji-dong had been in a state of contemplation, he was not careless at all. He did not cultivate, so he naturally did not have to worry about the 2 elemental bodies fighting with him for the fire elements in the air. Furthermore, with the 2 elemental bodies around, they could also help him protect the Flaming Bar. Just like Little Flame, he did not put away his bracelet. The cry of a phoenix was heard, and Little Flame flapped her wings and flew to Ji-dong's side. With a flash of light, she had already integrated into the Vermilion Bird Bracelet. Her body was too big now, so she could not land on Ji-dong's shoulder. Callum looked at Ji-dong's exquisite control of mana and was secretly amazed. He said respectfully, My two benefactors, please follow me." As he spoke, he took the lead and slid down the treehouse. Jidong and the flaming bar followed behind Callum and landed on the ground. After a few days of absorbing the fire elements in the air, the two elemental bodies had grown a little bigger. It was just that there was no rich fire element in the air, so the growth was not obvious. They just followed behind Jidong and the flaming bar, floating along the ground in a somewhat comical manner. Under Callum's lead, they walked along the stream in the forest. After walking for about the time it took to eat a meal, the path in front of them suddenly opened up, revealing a large lawn that was at least 10,000 square meters in size. There were no huge trees here, and the terrain was flat. The stream flowed around the lawn, and the rich life aura could even be seen with the naked eye. Jidong could not help but say, "This is simply a paradise for what element magic masters." In the center of the lawn, there were a total of more than 20 elderly forest demons waiting there. When they saw the two of them, they all came forward together. The one walking at the front was Elder Tom. "I have troubled you two benefactors to wait for a long time. Have you enjoyed your stay in our tribe these few days?" Jidong smiled and said, "Elder Tom, you are too polite. The Forest of Life is simply a paradise on Earth. This place is filled with the aura of nature. The forest demon race is indeed a race that is favored by the goddess of life." Tom sighed and said, "It would be great if that was the case. I hope that the goddess of life will not abandon her people. My two benefactors, please." The group of elderly forest demons silently spread out and welcomed Jidong and the flaming bar to the center of the lawn. An especially old forest demon walked out from the crowd. Hyoheim and the flaming bar bowed slightly and said, "Thank you, my two benefactors, for rescuing the Tom tribe. May I know your names?" Jidong's eyes moved slightly as he glanced at the forest demon elders. He discovered that there were at least 100 faint mana fluctuations around the lawn. "My name is Jidong, and this is the flaming bar. We came here coincidentally, so please just call us by our names. There is no need to call us benefactors. I know that you may be very wary of humans, but I can only tell you that there are good and bad humans. I dare not claim to be a good person, but I am definitely not one of those despicable bad people." The old forest demon elder was shocked as he vaguely understood the meaning behind Jidong's words. He said with slight awkwardness, "Please take a seat. We, the forest demons, have a total of more than 20 tribes in the Forest of Life. The elders of each tribe are already here. My name is Odom, and I am the elder of the Odom tribe, the number 1 forest demon tribe. I am also the chief elder of all the forest demon tribes." Jidong held the hand of the flaming bar and sat down on the spot. The two elemental bodies stood behind them like guards. The group of forest demon elders sat opposite Jidong and the flaming bar. At this time, a young forest demon brought all kinds of fruits and fruit juices. The forest demon elders looked at Jidong and the flaming bar with different gazes. But from their gazes, Jidong saw more cautiousness than friendliness. Only Elder Tam, who was sitting closest to the two, had an awkward expression mixed with some pleading and helplessness. On the other hand, Jidong appeared very calm. Even in the face of the forest demon elders' clearly unfriendly expressions, he still sat there as steady as a mountain. Handing a glass of juice to the flaming bar, Jidong said to Elder Odom, "We have already stayed here for 2 days. I believe Elder Tam has already conveyed my suggestion to the other elders. What do you all think?" Elder Odom said in a low voice, "I'm afraid we can't accept Mr. G's suggestion. We, the Forest Demon Tribe, have lived in the Forest of Life since birth. We have never left our home. We don't understand the outside world at all. Even though we're currently facing attacks from some of your human merchant guilds, we can still hold our ground in this familiar home. If we go to the outside world and enter your human world, let alone the Earth Spirit Mountain Range, I'm afraid we won't have any peace on the way. After careful discussion, we've decided to stay in the Forest of Life and defend our home against our enemies." "That's right. We will not leave our home. I will definitely lead all the forest demons to protect our Forest of Life. Any human who wants to wreak havoc here will have to pay a heavy price." A muscular forest demon suddenly stood up. He looked at Ji-dong and the flaming bar with the most unfriendly gaze. Ji-dong smiled indifferently. He picked up a fruit and slowly ate it. He said, "Since the elders have decided, then let it be. We have been delayed here for 2 days. It's time for us to hurry on our way. Goodbye." As he spoke, he stood up again. He pulled the flaming bar's hand and turned around to leave. The muscular forest demon who had stood up and glared at Ji-dong and the flaming bar coldly laughed. "Do you think it's that easy to leave? Is our forest of life a place you can come and go as you please?" Ji-dong frowned slightly. He paid no attention to the robust forest demon, and he turned to Elder Tianmu instead. "Elder, could it be that your forest demon clan is a clan that repays kindness with enmity?" The group of forest demon elders had already stood up. Elder Tam glared at the muscular forest demon and said, "Garso, what are you trying to do? Mr. Ji-dong saved our tribe. If it wasn't for him, I would have been a corpse a long time ago. He is our tribe's benefactor and our friend." Garso laughed coldly. "Tam, do you still not understand? These despicable humans have planned this from the start. Benefactor? They are clearly using the kindness of the forest demons to infiltrate our tribe. On the surface, it looks like they killed some humans, but in reality, they are trying to lure our entire tribe out of the forest of life so that they can wipe us out in one fell swoop. Do you really think these despicable humans will help us out of kindness?" After hearing Garso's words, Ji-dong laughed instead of getting angry. He looked at the chief forest demon elder Odom and said, "Do you and the other elders think the same?" Odom didn't reply to Ji-dong, but his and the other forest demon elders' gazes told Ji-dong the answer. At this moment, Garso let out a long howl. In an instant, more than 200 strong forest demons surged out from the surrounding forest. They all had obvious mana fluctuations on their bodies. The group of forest demon elders slowly retreated, and Ji-dong and the flaming bar were surrounded in the center. Garso shouted, "Take down these 2 humans. I will definitely interrogate them and find out their motives. Since these 2 humans are so powerful, they must be the leaders of the Chamber of Commerce. Let's take them down first." When they saw the humans, the eyes of the forest demons with mana turned red. The humans had slaughtered so many forest demons in the past few years that their hatred for humans had reached an extreme. Mana, which was mainly green, lit up and shot towards Ji-dong and the flaming bar. The flaming bar sighed and said, "They have been persecuted too deeply by the humans. You can't blame them for this." Ji-dong nodded and said, "I understand. Don't worry, I won't hurt these forest demons." "What are you doing? Are you crazy? This is our benefactor. How can you bite the hand that feeds you?" Elder Tom didn't retreat with the other forest demon elders. Instead, he stood in front of Ji-dong and refused to leave. He spread his arms and looked at the other forest demons with anger. Ji-dong patted Elder Tom's slender shoulder and said, "Elder, it's all right. Leave this to me. I promise you that I won't hurt any of your clansmen." Tom's eyes were filled with shame when he saw Hyoheim move. He said, "Benefactor, I'm sorry. I didn't know this would happen." Ji-dong shook his head and said, "I understand. Elder, you don't have to explain." At this point, Ji-dong looked at the group of forest demon elders and placed his hands behind his back. His eyes were filled with power as he said in a clear voice, "Elders, before we start, can you listen to me?" Chapter 197. Elders, can you listen to me? Ji-dong's voice traveled far and rang in the ears of every forest demon like a huge bell. Chief Elder Odom raised his hand and stopped the approaching forest demons. He said in a deep voice, "Sir, please speak." Ji-dong smiled indifferently and said, "I can understand your concerns, and I also understand your hatred towards humans. However, as I've said before, not all humans are bad. Flaming Bar and I are passing by your place, and our destination is the Middle Earth Empire. We've long heard of the famous source of life, and we're passing by the Forest of Life to buy some to try." Just as he said that, the muscular forest demon Elder Garso interrupted. "As I expected, you're here for the source of life." Ji-dong's gaze suddenly turned cold, and he glanced at him indifferently. Garso only felt as if 2 cold bolts of lightning had pierced his eyes. His body trembled, and his face turned pale. He couldn't say a word. Ji Dong placed his hands behind his back and puffed out his chest. He said proudly, "Before we entered the Forest of Life, we saw the people from the Golden Eagle Merchant Association, but we didn't know their goal. Later, when we discovered that they were slaughtering the forest demons, we came to Elder Tarm's aid. I don't want to explain too much about your suspicions, but you're just making wild guesses. If you don't believe me, we can leave. However, if you obstruct us and are prepared to use force against us, it's just a joke to me. How are you forest demons compared to the Golden Eagle Merchant Association's team of magicians? Even the Golden Eagle Merchant Association's team of 7 crowns heavenly masters and 10 6-crowns heavenly warriors couldn't resist me. Can you forest demons stop me? I don't want to kill innocent people. Elder Odom, please get your people to open a path for us to leave." At this point, Ji Dong's eyes suddenly lit up, like 2 dazzling stars suddenly blooming. Black and white light instantly rose from his body, condensing into the unique black and white yin-yang crown above his head. A huge aura rose like an explosion, and the aura of the 6 crowns instantly bloomed. 2 flames, one black and one gold, rose from his body at the same time. They soared up to 100 feet and blossomed like 2 walls of fire. This was the first time Ji Dong had unscrupulously released his powerful mana after leaving the core world. The lawn that was originally brimming with the aura of life was instantly engulfed by blazing and violent fire elements. The tyrannical elemental suppression instantly spread to every corner of the lawn. Be it the approaching great forest monsters or the elders of the various forest monster tribes, they all felt suffocated by the terrifying attribute suppression. Ji Dong's eyes flickered with a dazzling light. He said indifferently, "The life and death of the forest demon tribe has nothing to do with me. What you want to do is your own business. Make way." His good intentions had been treated as a conspiracy. Even if he could understand the forest demon's hatred towards humans, it did not mean that he would continue to help these forest demons who repaid kindness with ingratitude. Garso had already recovered at this moment and shouted, "Don't be afraid of him. He's only one person, and we cannot let him leave this place. Otherwise, he will definitely collude with those chambers of commerce to deal with us." Garso was the ferocious leader of the great forest demons. Upon hearing his words, over 100 great forest demons gathered their mana with great difficulty and approached Hyoheim again. An intense hostility flashed through Ji Dong's eyes, and he said, "Do you really think that I won't kill?" He released the aura of the tyrant, and the 2 extreme flames behind him instantly erupted, transforming into the forms of 2 great kings that were 10 meters tall. The intense killing intent mixed with the attribute suppression made the great forest demons unable to take another step forward. The strongest among the forest demons was only an ordinary 6-crown demon master, and they did not even have a magical beast as a companion. Faced with Ji Dong's extreme dual fire elemental suppression, they could not even unleash 40% of their strength. They looked at the existence that was like a demon god in shock, and fear flowed from the bottom of their hearts. Ji Dong. The flaming bar raised her hand and grabbed Ji Dong's arm. Even though she could not use her mana, the flames on Ji Dong's body would not harm her at all. Ji Dong turned to look at the flaming bar and saw that the flaming bar was shaking her head gently at him. Looking at her, the killing intent in Ji Dong's heart gradually subsided. He took a deep breath, calmed his anger, and let out a long howl toward the sky. Then, a scene that the forest demons would never forget appeared. 6 golden and 6 black, 12 beams of light suddenly burst out from the strange black and white yin-yang crown on Ji Dong's head. These 12 beams of light expanded rapidly in the air, and within a blink of an eye, transformed into 6 gigantic fiery dragons and 6 dark blue flying serpents. The dragons and serpents that Ji Dong had released were completely different from before. Each of the fire dragons seemed to have a physical body, and even the patterns on their scales could be seen clearly. The violent golden fire dragons and the dark black flying serpents instantly filled the entire sky, leaving only these 2 colors of light on the large lawn. The fire elements that covered the sky were filled with an endless aura of destruction. As they appeared, the two great kings behind Ji-dong turned into light shadows and merged into a black and white yin-yang fish that was 5 meters in diameter. If it was a tribute suppression before, then the massive mana released by Ji-dong had completely solidified the air on the lawn. Every forest monster had difficulty breathing, let alone moving. The power of 6 dragons and 6 serpents was not as simple as 4 plus 2 equals 6. The current Ji-dong could almost truly control the enormous power of the 6 dragons and 6 serpents. Although he should not have been able to do all this with his current mana, he had reached the level of a powerhouse on the spiritual level with the help of the successful cultivation of the soul fire. If the great forest goblins still had a sliver of hope in their hearts, they were now overwhelmed with fear when they saw the overwhelming power of the 6 dragons and 6 snakes. That was a power that they could not imagine. Even though Ji-dong did not release any magic skills, the terrifying magic that surged in the air and the pure attribute suppression told them how powerful the human youth in front of them was. Just like what Ji-dong had said before, it was a joke for them to keep Ji-dong and the flaming bar here. Gasso had long since widened his eyes in shock, and his body was trembling in fear. The huge yin-yang fish spinning behind Ji-dong's back seemed to have an infinite attraction force that was about to suck in all the forest demon souls. The 6 dragons and 6 snakes lined up in the air, and as long as Ji-dong gave the order, they would form a terrifying force that was enough to destroy the heavens and the earth and engulf all the forest demons here. The advantage of numbers was completely meaningless in the face of absolute power. Ji-dong was still the same Ji-dong, but at this moment, the forest demon elders could fully sense that his eyes were filled with the aura of a monarch that ruled over the world, and they could only feel subservience in their hearts. After being enraged by the forest monsters several times, Ji-dong had already planned to take action. The forest monsters repaying kindness with enmity had angered him. If it was not for the flaming bar, he would have attacked the forest monsters by now. Ji-dong would never go against the flaming bar's wishes, so he suppressed his anger and released the power of 6 dragons and 6 serpents to intimidate the forest monsters. Looking at the pale forest demons, he raised his hands at the same time and made a grabbing motion in the air. The fire dragons and winged serpents were pulled back one after another and merged back into the black and white yin-yang crown on his head. The current him was no longer as strong as before. His powerful control allowed him to almost completely recover the mana that he had released but hadn't launched an attack. When the last flying serpent returned to the yin-yang crown, the frozen air regained its vitality, and the aura of life in the forest of life began to fill the air again. However, the atmosphere on the lawn where the forest monster elders were discussing matters was different. Every forest monster elder looked at Ji-dong and was speechless. No matter how much they hated humans, they knew that Ji-dong had no ill intentions towards them. Otherwise, the mana that he had released would have been enough to wipe out all the forest monster elites in the area. Why would he need to trick them? In the face of absolute power, all tricks were useless. Holding the flaming bar's hand, Ji-dong said plainly, "Let's go." With that, he turned around and walked towards the forest of life with the flaming bar. The forest monsters made way for Ji-dong and the flaming bar. They did not even dare to breathe loudly, as they were afraid of angering this demonic godlike man in front of them. "Mr. Ji-dong, please wait," Elder Odom called out in a hurry. Ji-dong stopped in his tracks, but he did not even turn around. He said plainly, "Why? Are you planning to keep us here, Elder?" It was a simple sentence, but it was filled with cold, murderous intent when it came out of Ji-dong's mouth. No one doubted that if the forest monster tribe dared to provoke him again, he would start a merciless massacre. With a plop, Odom fell to his knees and kowtowed to Ji-dong. As he knelt, the forest monster elders behind him also knelt and prostrated themselves on the ground. "Mr. Ji-dong, we were wrong. The sinister and ruthless human beings have caused us to lose the word trust in our hearts. Not only did we not thank you for saving the TMU tribe, but we even treated you as an enemy. All of this is my responsibility as the Great Elder. I am willing to bear all the blame, I only ask that you stay." As he spoke, the great elder of the forest demon tribe drew a dagger out of nowhere and plunged it into his own heart. "Great elder, you can't." Garso grabbed the great elder's wrist and said urgently, "Great elder, you can't. Great elder, you can't do that. You are the backbone of the forest demon tribe. Without you, who can lead us to fight against the foreign enemies? Even if there is a mistake, it is my fault. If I must die, let me die." "Shut up," Great Elder Odom shouted sternly. Although he was not as strong as Garso, the great forest monster commander, no one could compare to him in terms of status and influence among the tribe. Odom shook his wrist and forcefully broke free from Garso's grip. Odom shook his wrist and forcefully broke free from Garso's restraints. He slowly stood up and looked at the elders behind him. "I am the leader of the Forest Goblin tribe and your Grand Elder. The Forest Goblin tribe has failed to live up to our benefactor, and everything was agreed upon by me. None of you have the right to fight with me over this crime, and none of you have the qualifications to do so. Now, I will give you my final order as the Grand Elder. After my death, Tom will take over the position of Grand Elder. No matter what, you must keep our benefactor alive and do everything according to his instructions. For the continuation of our Forest Goblin tribe, we will move out of the Forest of Life. At the same time, everything that our Forest Goblin tribe possesses will be given to our benefactor if he has any needs." "Great Elder!" The forest monster elders knelt on the ground and cried out in sorrow. Odom looked at Hyoheim and the flaming bar's back. He clenched his teeth and stabbed the sharp blade in his hand towards his heart. He was filled with determination. After recognizing that Ji Dong was sincere in helping them, the Great Elder made the wisest decision. He knew that it was impossible for Ji Dong to forgive them with words alone. Since Ji Dong had promised to help the forest monster tribe, it proved that he was sincere. He wanted to use his death to redeem the prejudice that Ji Dong and the Flaming Bar had against the forest monster tribe. Then, he would promote TMU, who had the best relationship with Ji Dong and the Flaming Bar, to the position of Great Elder. Only then would he be able to get Ji Dong's help. The strength that Ji Dong had displayed previously was unimaginable to any forest monster. Odom could not be sure if Ji Dong could lead the forest monster tribe out of this crisis. However, he was sure that if he let go of this opportunity, the forest monster tribe might really disappear from the stage of history in the near future. He had no other choice but to take the gamble. A small fireball collided with the dagger, and in the next moment, the sharp dagger had already turned into molten iron and dripped onto the ground. The scorching heat caused the Great Elder to subconsciously loosen his grip and cry out in pain. Ji Dong pulled the flaming bar and slowly turned around. He said calmly, "I'll give you 7 days to organize the tribe. Try to pack as little as possible and only bring the things that you need the most. We'll depart in 7 days." After saying that, Ji Dong led the flaming bar forward again, but in the direction they came from. Looking at Ji Dong's back, Elder Odom sat on the ground with a thud. Tears streamed down his face as he said, "The forest monster tribe can finally be saved." He was right. Humans are not all sinister and ruthless. There are good people too. The group of elders hurried forward to help Odom up. Garso asked hesitantly, "Elder, what should we do? Can he really help us?" Odom said in a deep voice, "You've heard what our benefactor said. 7 days. We only have 7 days. Return to your tribes now and pack your things. I don't know if he can bring new life to the forest monster tribe, but I'm sure that he's a human who is truly willing to help us." Chapter 198. Great Elder is wise. Tom said respectfully, "We have no other way out. We can only take this gamble. If we continue to stay in the Forest of Life, our Forest Goblin tribe will only be able to survive. Great Elder, do you know? I have already made up my mind. If you insist on not allowing us to migrate with our benefactor, I would rather take my tribe and leave with him." Odom sighed and looked at Tom with a gentle gaze. "How could I not know that this is an opportunity? However, I have to make the gamble with a higher chance of success. If we only had a 50% chance of success before, then I am now certain that our chance of success is above 70%. Tom's heart trembled. "Great Elder, You mean that you already knew that our benefactor was not sent by the enemy? Odom nodded slowly. If we have to sacrifice several six-crown yin and yang magician just to infiltrate our forest goblin tribe, it would be an unbearable loss for any Chamber of Commerce. Moreover, the Golden Eagle Chamber of Commerce has lost more than this number. The reason why I did this today is to further understand our benefactor and to further confirm that he is sincerely helping us. After all, our benefactor is still too young. He is a young and righteous human. I believe that he has already seen that I was only testing him. Moreover, he has forgiven us. This kind of broad-mindedness is enough for our forest goblin tribe to entrust our lives to him. From now on, our benefactor is our king, regardless of whether the migration is successful or not. Jidong brought the flaming bar back to the treehouse silently. The flaming bar did not let go of Jidong's hand. Instead, he held it with both of his hands and said, "Jidong, I have made you suffer today. However, those forest goblins are truly pitiful." Jidong suddenly smiled. He felt the flaming bar's two soft hands caressing him. He smiled and said, "Odom is indeed the great elder of the forest goblin tribe. You are indeed wise." The flaming bar was taken aback. "I don't understand." Jidong said, "You may be the queen of the core world, but you know too little about the mutual deceit of the human world. In fact, the first elder never saw us as enemies from the start. Don't you think he reacted too quickly when I threatened the forest demons? That dagger was clearly prepared in advance. Although Odom was the great elder of the forest demon tribe, he didn't have much combat power. What use did he have for a dagger? All of this was arranged by him." The flaming bar lifted his veil and looked at Jidong in surprise. "Did the forest demons arrange this to test us?" Jidong nodded and said, "Actually, I knew from the beginning. I was just cooperating with them to put on a show. Releasing the power of the 6 dragons and 6 snakes was to strengthen their confidence." The flaming bar said, "How did you know?" Jidong smiled faintly and said, "This is actually not difficult. Grand Elder Odom and I have exchanged glances before, and from his eyes, I did not see even the slightest bit of doubt, only contemplation. Furthermore, we have saved the people of the TMU tribe, so it is clearly not normal for them to speak ill of us before we have a clear understanding of the situation." The flaming bar let go of Jidong's hands and laughed. "If I remember correctly, you haven't come into contact with many things in human society. How do you understand the forest demon elders so well?" Jidong chuckled and said, "That's a secret." He couldn't tell the flaming bar that he had more than 30 years of experience in society in his previous life. The flaming bar pouted and said, "Mix me a drink. I haven't had your drink for 2 days." "Okay." Jidong agreed immediately. However, his expression soon froze because he couldn't find a single bottle of drink in his vermilion burr bracelet. Not even a flask could be found. The flaming bar, "I've used all my drinks for experiments. I'm afraid I can't mix drinks for you for now. You'll have to wait until we go to the human cities to buy some." Jidong said helplessly. The flaming bar laughed. "I guessed it. I was just teasing you. Who asked you to be so mysterious?" Jidong, have you thought of a way to help the forest demon tribe move to the Earth Spirit Mountain Range? The forest demon tribe has a conservative population of 200,000. Such a large-scale migration will definitely alert the Easternwood Empire and the Middle-earth Empire. I'm afraid it won't be easy." Jidong nodded and said, "I'm aware of that. Since the forest demon tribe has decided to leave with us, we must think of a foolproof plan before we can bring them along." Jidong fell in a deep thought as he said that. He had been researching the magic wine before, and the forest demon tribe hadn't confirmed whether they would listen to his suggestion. Hence, he didn't think too much about this problem. However, the problem was pressing, and he had no choice but to think about it. At that moment, Callum climbed up from below. He was still carrying his basket. "My 2 benefactors, I hope I'm not disturbing you." Callum showed his head in the hole under the tree house with a face full of shame. "Callum, hurry up and come up." Jidong waved at him. Callum climbed up the tree house and took the basket off his back. Before Jidong could say anything, he had already knelt down in front of Jidong. Jidong frowned. He waved his hand, and a burst of fragmented mana lifted Callum's body. He asked, "What are you doing?" Callum lowered his head and said, "Benefactors, it's all our fault for biting the hand that feeds us." Callum begs benefactors, "Please forgive the elders. These days, the elders have been worrying about the safety of our people every day. They're like birds that are frightened by the mere twang of a bough." Dong smiled and said, "Let bygones be bygones. Callum, thank you for taking care of us these days. Don't be like this. Even if we are really chased out, I will still recognize you as a friend." "Really?" Callum was overjoyed. He looked up at Hyoheim with eyes full of excitement. Dong nodded at him and said, "Don't think too much about it. You should also go back and prepare. The forest demon tribe is about to migrate. I think you will also have a lot of things to prepare." "Not much, not much. Oh, by the way, benefactor, after you left today, Grand Elder Odom announced that you're the king of the forest demon tribe. I'll have to call you the Great King from now on." Forest Demon King? This was something that Dong had never expected. "How can that be? I'm not a forest demon," Dong said in surprise. Callum shook his head and said, "That was what the Great Elder said. No one in the tribe will go against the Great Elder's orders. The Great Elder also said that we will listen to you from now on." Dong shook his head helplessly and said, "It seems like we are carrying a lot of baggage this time." Callum smiled foolishly. Clearly, he did not understand what Dong meant. He bent down and took out some fruit from the basket. When he took out the last 2 green gourds, they were 2 small green gourds. The small gourds looked crystal clear, as if they were carved out of jade. They were glossy, transparent, and full of the pride of hard jade. When Callum took out the 2 gourds, his movements became much gentler, and he seemed very solemn. "Callum, what are these?" Flaming Bar asked. Her senses were much sharper than Dong's. Although the 2 green gourds were only the size of a palm, she could already sense the life aura contained within them. They were almost tangible. Callum's mother said solemnly, "These are the source of life brewed by the forest demon tribe. Please have a taste, King and Queen." "Queen?" Dong and Flaming Bar said almost at the same time. Their expressions became strange, and their expressions changed even more than when they saw the source of life. Callum left with the basket, and only Dong and Flaming Bar were left in the treehouse. Dong stood there awkwardly and did not know what to say. Flaming Bar's pretty face blushed. She lowered her head and did not say a word for a long time. The treehouse was so quiet that one could even hear Dong's intense heartbeat. He held the 2 green gourds and brought them to Flaming Bar. He chuckled and said, "Queen, don't you want to have a taste of this source of life?" Raging Flames raised her head and glanced at Dong. Her beautiful eyes moved as if she was angry, and the amorous feelings in her eyes caused Dong to be stunned. She was just too beautiful, beautiful to the point of captivating fish and beasts, beautiful to the point of causing shame to the moon and flowers, and beautiful to the point of causing calamity to the people. Of course, this was something that Dong would never dare to say out loud, but he was sure that no man would not be moved when they saw Raging Flame's gaze. Flaming Bar said angrily, "Who's your queen?" Dong, "If you continue to be like this, I'll return to the Earth's core. You could be the Forest Demon King here alone." Dong chuckled and said, "I wasn't the one who said it. You can't blame me for this. Come, have a taste of this source of life." Flaming Bar glared at him and took the source of life. Dong was currently in a rather good mood. Although Raging Flame was blaming him, he discovered that after Raging Flame left the Earth's core with him, she had clearly become more human-like than before. That kind of high and mighty, sacred feeling was becoming fainter and fainter, and instead, she was becoming more and more like a human girl. Especially when she looked at him, she would often reveal a gentleness that made his heart beat faster. This discovery made him firm in his confidence. After the battle of Saint and Evil ended a year later, when his cultivation reached a higher level, he would officially court Raging Flame. The clear-colored gourd in Flaming Bar's white palm seemed to bring out the best in each other. Flaming Bar gently pulled out the stopper. Instantly, a rich, fruity fragrance and surging life force filled the entire treehouse. The rich life force even emitted a faint green color. This is the sign of life dew. Even Flaming Bar could not help but exclaim when she saw this. Jidong asked in surprise, "What is life dew?" Flaming Bar said with a straight face, "You are a demon master. You should still remember the process of your mana, transforming from a gaseous state to a liquid state after you reach the crown level. That was a leap in quality, causing your mana to almost materialize in your body. However, even if your mana has reached the 6th crown level, it still takes a lot of energy to condense the mana outside your body to launch an attack. From a certain perspective, life force can also be considered a type of mana. The so-called life dew is when life force is so rich that it can be turned into a liquid state. No wonder the Golden Eagle Commerce did not hesitate to mobilize thousands of people to deal with the forest demons. No wonder the forest demons are in such a difficult situation. You don't need to drink it. You can guess the powerful effect of this source of life just by smelling it. As she spoke, Flaming Bar stretched out her other hand and tilted the small green gourd towards her palm. Instantly, a green liquid that looked like a new leaf dripped onto her palm. Instantly, the previously blurry green mist became clear, and the drop of green liquid quickly evaporated at a speed visible to the naked eye. Jidong took a deep breath and inhaled the life dew into his body. Instantly, a thick fruity fragrance spread throughout his body. Every cell in his body seemed to be activated by the huge amount of life force. An indescribable, comfortable feeling and that wonderful smell immediately filled his body with life force. Good wine. This is a wine brewed from fresh fruits. There are at least 100 kinds of fresh fruits and some strange things mixed together. After fermentation and brewing, this is the source of life. Even with my sense of smell, I can't completely distinguish these scents. This can definitely be called a rare treasure. As the god of wine, Jidong was extremely sensitive to the taste of wine. As the life dew entered his nose, he was able to quickly distinguish it as well as savor its wondrous taste. The Flaming Bar quickly capped the bottle, preventing the source of life from evaporating any more life dew into the air. She said, "A single sip of this wine can extend the lifespan of an ordinary person by at least a year. A single sip of this wine can even bring a heavily injured person back to life. Furthermore, there are no side effects at all. It completely uses the huge amount of life force to stimulate a person's potential. This source of life can be described as the essence of the wood element. To be able to condense this wine, the forest demons have an unfathomable understanding of the wood element. If we were to measure the value of each bottle, it would be equivalent to a Class 7 monster core at the very least, or even higher." Jidong smiled bitterly. "I originally wanted to exchange for some to try, but now it seems that even if I were to go bankrupt, I would only be able to exchange for these 2 bottles." The Flaming Bar smiled. "You're the Forest Demon King now. Are you still afraid of not having the source of life?" Jidong said helplessly, "Can't you tell that this is just a way for the Forest Demon Elders to rope me in so that I can lead them to a path of survival? Not to mention that I can't take advantage of someone's difficulties to ask for it." The Flaming Bar said, "That's not important. Jidong, no matter how difficult it is, I hope that you can help the forest demons overcome this crisis. It's not for any benefit, just for the sake of the source of life. Such a divine item shouldn't be lost just like this." Jidong nodded and fiddled with the small gourd in his hand. "I will do my best." Chapter 199. The Flaming Bar thought for a moment and said, "How about this? You're too weak on your own. I'll return to the Earth's core now and see if the dragon eggs can hatch as soon as possible." Jidong said, "That's a good idea, but don't spoil things through excessive enthusiasm." The Flaming Bar nodded and vanished into thin air in the next moment, taking the source of life from the small gourd with her. As the god of wine, Jidong's emotions were no less excited than when he discovered that there was a possibility of making magic wine. He carefully opened the bottle cap and took a small sip. He was instantly immersed in a wonderful feeling. Even if he was the god of wine, he still needed good ingredients in order to make better cocktails. Without a doubt, this source of life, dew of life, was a top-notch liquor. Thus, he only took a small sip before storing the rest of the source of life into his vermilion burr bracelet. He could feel the stimulated vitality and more focused spirit in his body, savoring the fresh fruit flavor that lingered in his mouth. The warmth in his chest made him feel indescribably comfortable. Just as the flaming bar had said, the source of life wasn't just a kind of wine, but also an extremely precious tonic and medicine. Spreading out the map, Ji-dong began to think carefully. The route and the entire process of moving 200,000 forest demons from one country to another were all extremely important. Moreover, the speed had to be fast. If it was slow, the variables would be greater. The forest demons ate fresh fruits, and the amount of fruits they could carry with them to satisfy their hunger would be limited. The Forest of Life was in the center of the Eastern Wood Empire, while the Earth Spirit Mountain Range was to the east of Central Plain City. Central Plain City was at the center of the continent, and also the center of the Middle Earth Empire. According to the map, the distance from the Forest of Life to the Earth Spirit Mountain Range wasn't that far. Secondly, this was why Ji-dong had chosen to travel through the Forest of Life to the Middle Earth Empire. However, it was still difficult to travel from the Forest of Life to the Earth Spirit Mountain Range. First of all, there was a large river that ran through the Northwater Empire and the Eastern Wood Empire to the west of the Forest of Life. This river was called the Shuemu River. It started from a northernmost glacier of the Northwater Empire, flowed through 3 provinces of the Northwater Empire, and crossed 3/4 of the Eastern Wood Empire before flowing into the sea. It could be said to be the mother river of the Northwater Empire and the Eastern Wood Empire, as well as the 3rd largest river on the continent. It was only inferior to the Kanglan River of the Southern Fire Empire and the Tianlu River that ran through the Western Gold Empire, the Central Plains, and the Eastern Wood Empire. The average width of the entire Shuemu River was as high as 150 kilometers. If it was only Ji-dong and the flaming bar, he could easily fly across the river with the vermilion bird's wings. However, it would be much more difficult for him to cross the river with 200,000 forest demons, and he had no idea how long it would take. After crossing the Shuemu River, there was a series of complicated terrains, especially the intersection of the 2 empires. Although there had not been any wars on the continent for many years, there were still garrisons on the border. Even though there were not many of them, once the forest demons attracted the attention of the garrisons, the 2 empires would definitely be alerted. In that case, it would be extremely troublesome. Not to mention the Chamber of Commerce's hunting teams. Even the official forces of the 2 empires would be in great danger. At the thought of this, Ji-dong fully realized how troublesome it was to help the forest demons migrate. Furthermore, could the 200,000 forest demons directly enter the Earth Spirit Mountain Range? As one of the places with the most magical beasts in the Central Plains Empire, the Earth Spirit Mountain Range was far from being comparable to the Holy Evil Island. However, if the forest demons were to enter recklessly, it would be no different from committing suicide. Ji-dong's thoughts gradually cleared up. The migration of the forest demons, this time, was mainly focused on a few problems. First, how to travel in a hurry. Second, how to not alert the officials of the 2 empires. Finally, whether they would be accepted after entering the Earth Spirit Mountain Range. Only by solving all these problems could the journey proceed smoothly. Leaping down from the treehouse, Ji-dong shouted, "Callum!" Callum lived not far from the treehouse. When he heard Ji-dong shout, he quickly ran over and said, "Great King, what can I do for you?" Ji-dong said, "Go and invite Great Elder Odom here. It would be best if you invite a few other elders as well. I have something to discuss with them." Callum acknowledged and quickly left. As the group of elders had gathered at a place not far from where they were, in less than an hour, all the elders who had gathered on the lawn had gathered. What amused Ji-dong was that the arrogant great forest goblin commander, Elder Gasso, had retreated to the back of the group. He lowered his head and did not dare to look at Ji-dong. However, he was the tallest among the group of elders, so he was very obvious as he stood there. "Great King, the forest demon tribe will have to find a way to survive under your leadership. Please tell us if you need anything." Under Great Elder Odom's lead, all the forest demon elders bowed respectfully to Hyoheim. Compared to the scene of them biting the hand that fed them on the lawn, the forest demons now truly revealed their simple side. Ji-dong said indifferently, "Elders, you don't have to do this. I'm only helping you. I'm not a forest demon. So how can I be your king? Great Elder Odom, you don't have to use this method to try to win me over. I will definitely do my best to do what I said. However, you should also understand that it's not easy to migrate a tribe. There are hundreds of thousands of forest demon tribes, and we are separated by the Shuemu River when we move west. Although the Shuemu River nurtured the forest of life, we still have to cross the Shuemu River in order to reach the Earth Spirit Mountain Range. There are also some other problems that I would like to ask. Do you have any solutions for yourselves?" He immediately voiced out the problems that he had thought of and waited for the forest demon elders to reply. After hearing Ji-dong's words, Odom was the first to frown. He turned around and quickly discussed with the forest demon elders. Ji-dong waited quietly at the side. If the forest demons could solve some problems on their own, it would naturally be much easier for them to migrate. Unfortunately, things did not go as planned. When Ji-dong saw Odom's helpless gaze, he knew that they probably had no solutions. "I'm sorry, great king. We forest demons have lived in the forest of life for generations and lack understanding of the outside world. We have tried to go out and experience the human world, but as you can see, our green skin will not be accepted by the human world. We can only rely on you now." Ji-dong furrowed his brows, but he could only nod helplessly. "I understand. Since I've agreed to help you migrate, I have to be responsible for the forest demon tribe. I cannot leave the forest of life blindly, or I will not be helping you, but harming you. How about this, Elder Odom? Prepare for the internal migration. I will first make a trip to the Middle Earth Empire to pave the way for you. I know the strongest magical beast in the Earth Spirit Mountain Range. If it agrees to accept you, there won't be any problems when you're stationed there. At the same time, I will try my best to think of a way to help you migrate better." Elder Odom was startled and asked, "Great king, you are leaving?" Ji-dong said, "I will be gone for at least 7 days, and at most half a month. I will definitely rush back. After you reorganize your tribe, try to move to the west of the Forest of Life and gather your people there. If you encounter an enemy attack, it will be easier to resist." Odom hesitated for a moment before he nodded and said, "All right, great king. We will await your return. Do you need some money? We have some savings from our business with the humans in the past few years." Ji-dong shook his head and said, "No need, I don't lack money. Remember, gather your people as soon as possible." After saying that, a white light flashed and a pair of huge white wings unfurled on his back. It was the Phoenix Dance Dragon Snake transformation, and the yin-yang flame formation appeared. In the blink of an eye, Ji-dong's body turned into a ray of light that soared into the sky. The Forest Devil Elders didn't even have time to react before they lost sight of him. At the same time, 2 rays of light also soared and followed him. They were the yin-yang fire elemental bodies. Garso finally poked his head out from behind and asked doubtfully, "Will he really come back?" Odom coldly looked at him and said, "I don't want to hear the same words a second time. If the king didn't sincerely want to help us, then he wouldn't need to say anything to us. Didn't you see his speed just now? With the king's ability, it would be effortless for him to leave this place. Prepare to continue the migration. Everything will be done according to the king's instructions. I'm getting more and more confident in this migration." Ji-dong had already flown into the sky at this time. He naturally didn't know what Odom was talking about, nor did he know that the Forest Devil tribe was so confident in him. Even as he flew in the sky, he was constantly thinking. In his mind, the migration of the Forest Devil tribe wouldn't be that easy to complete. The yin-yang flames soaring array was like the 2 engines on a plane in Ji-dong's previous life. With the support of powerful mana, he flew at full speed like a meteor chasing the moon. From the ground, one could only see a flash of white light. It was impossible to capture his figure. Especially when he flew through the clouds, large patches of clouds would be affected by the fire elements emitted from his body and be split in half. The feeling of flying in the sky was absolutely wonderful, especially when flying at full speed like this. Dong clearly felt that his current flying speed was comparable to Chong Rui's Purple Thunder Heavenly Dragon. The fusion of the Phoenix Dance Dragon Snake transformation not only integrated his own defensive abilities, but also improved his coordination and flying ability. The Winged Serpent transformation, the abilities of the Sparrow, and the Ice Dragon were integrated into one, turning into the Phoenix Dance Dragon Snake transformation that could overcome softness with toughness. In less than 15 minutes, the green under Dong's feet disappeared. He had already flown out of the Forest of Life, which was ranked among the top in the continent. Immediately after was the wide Shuimu River. He could see the surging waves on the surface of the river. Although it wasn't as turbulent as the sea, it was still magnificent. The rolling waves had the momentum of the heavenly river. So fast, even Dong didn't expect his flying speed to reach such a level. After crossing the Shuimu River, he would soon cross the border of the Eastern Wood Empire and enter the Middle-earth Empire. After deliberately raising his flying altitude, Dong focused his mental energy on his eyes and looked into the distance. It only took him another 15 minutes to cross the 150 kilometers of water. Dong finally understood what it meant to travel 1,000 kilometers in an instant. With his current flying speed, it wasn't too difficult to fly 1,000 kilometers in 2 hours. After crossing the Shuimu River, he could already see the complicated terrain in the distance. From a bird's-eye view, he could directly see the border between the Middle-earth Empire and the Eastern Wood Empire. The two empires had different attributes, and even their national auras were different. The Eastern Wood Empire was filled with the soaring and free aura of life, while the Middle-earth Empire was filled with the thick and solid aura of Earth. With the power that Dong currently possessed, he could naturally clearly distinguish between them. He discovered that on the border of the two countries, there was a stone castle every 50 li. It didn't look big, but it could only house about 1,000 people. The main structure of each stone castle included a huge beacon tower inside, which could be quickly lit to summon reinforcements in case of an enemy attack. On the narrow and long border, Dong could see at least 10 stone castles as far as his eyes could see, and he could even faintly see the scene of light cavalry patrolling. Obviously, even in this era of peace, the two great empires had not reduced their border patrols. Of course, this wasn't to prevent wars between the countries, but more to deal with the smuggling of those merchant guilds. Seeing the beacon tower, a thought flashed in Dong's mind. He suddenly thought of a good idea. Flying high in the sky and traversing between the clouds, Dong was naturally not afraid of being discovered. Even if he was discovered by the soldiers below, how could there be any experts among the soldiers guarding the border who could contend against him? With a flap of his wings, in the blink of an eye, Dong had already passed through the Eastern Wood Empire and entered the territory of the Middle-earth Empire. Seeing with his eyes was one thing, but after entering the Middle-earth Empire, his body's senses were another matter. Perhaps it was because he had a certain understanding of chaos, coupled with the sensitivity of the fire of the soul. After entering the Middle-earth Empire from the Eastern Wood Empire, Dong clearly felt that his body had become heavier. The heavy air and the thick aura of the earth had caused his flying speed to decrease slightly. As expected of the Five Elements continent, the empires were named after the five elements. This was not just for show, but it had a real meaning. He increased the output of his magic power, and the two soaring formations formed the image of the yin and yang fish behind Dong. As the light flowed, his speed had returned to normal, and he headed straight for the Earth Soul Mountains. Chapter 200. Dong was rather familiar with the Earth Spirit Mountain range. After all, it was not his first time coming here, and he was on good terms with the fire divine beast, the vermilion bird. With the phoenix plume that the vermilion bird had given him, it could be said to be the safest place in the mountain range. Back then, he had come here to hide from the pursuit of the royal family of the Middle-earth Empire. For hours, from leaving the Forest of Life to arriving at the outskirts of the Earth Spirit Mountain range, Dong had only used 4 hours. This speed was indeed comparable to that of a dragon. If he wanted to, he would only need a day to fly across the entire continent, and he would no longer need any means of transportation. However, These 4 hours of high-speed flight had consumed a lot of Jidong's mana, and he had actually used up more than half of his mana. Jidong did not stop at the outskirts of the Earth Spirit Mountain range, nor did he slow down. He directly took out 2 Phoenix Plume and held them in his hands. At the same time, he converted the Yin-Yang Fire Soaring Array behind him into the Yin-Yang Fire Condensation Array, which decreased his speed and increased his mana recovery rate as he flew towards the depths of the Earth Spirit Mountain range. Without the support of the Soaring Array, Jidong's flying speed was only a third of his original speed. However, with the support of the Condensation Array, his mana recovery rate increased by 3 times. As a result, the large amount of mana that had been consumed during the 4 hours of flight was already slowly recovering. The overall area of the Earth Spirit Mountain range was smaller than that of the Forest of Life. However, the mountain range was undulating and there were many forests. Not to mention 200,000 forest demons, it would not be a problem even if there were 10 times that number. Flying above the Earth Spirit Mountain range was completely different from flying in the Forest of Life. Jidong could clearly feel the aura of magical beasts locking onto him from time to time. Of course, it was almost impossible for these magical beasts to lock onto him, especially when they felt the mana undulations of the Phoenix Plume. They would quickly retract their auras, lest they be discovered by Jidong and bring disaster upon themselves. Only when he entered the inner region of the Earth Spirit Mountain range did Jidong feel the pressure. In the past, he had always come from the bottom of the Earth Spirit Mountain range. Now that he was flying in the sky, there was no doubt that he would receive the attention of a large number of magical beasts. The magical beasts in the inner region of the Earth Spirit Mountain range were much stronger than the outer region. They were all at least Class 6, and there was no lack of Class 8 or 9 powerhouses. Even Class 10 magical beasts were not limited to the Fire Divine beast, the Vermilion Bird. However, the Vermilion Bird was the strongest here, and it was the true king of the Earth Spirit Mountain range. He activated his mana and poured it into the Phoenix Plume. Immediately, the golden-red Phoenix Plume began to emit a dense aura of the Phoenix. Jidong had the support of the Phoenix's bloodline and the ultimate Yang Fire. With the addition of mana, the Phoenix Plume's aura was not much different from the Vermilion Bird's aura. With this, the Earth Spirit Mountain range calmed down slightly, and the powerful auras gradually disappeared. In the distance, Jidong could already see the Vermilion Bird's cave. A trace of joy appeared in his eyes as he poured his mana into the Vermilion Bird bracelet. Come out. It's time to go home. Scorching hot mana fluctuations were released from the Vermilion Bird bracelet. With a resonant phoenix cry, Horror's enlarged body flapped its wings and soared high into the sky. The dense mana fluctuations of Yin and Yang fire blossomed like mercury. At this moment, Horror had truly gained the appearance of a divine beast's bloodline. He released his aura without holding anything back, and his mana immediately rose to its peak. His golden body released black flames, and his black body released golden flames. The balance of Yin and Yang was very similar to Jidong's mana. Even though Horror was still limited to the 6th rank, it was only a step away from the 7th rank. As soon as it left the Vermilion Bird bracelet, Horror sensed the familiar aura of its surroundings. When its gaze fell upon the Vermilion Bird's cave below, its resonant phoenix, Lu trembled even more and became even more spirited. It folded its wings and flew straight towards the Vermilion Bird's cave like a young swallow. An even more resonant phoenix cry that resounded through every corner of the Earth Spirit Mountain range exploded from within the Vermilion Bird's cave. Immediately after, the heavens and the earth were instantly transformed into a golden-red color. The extremely dense fire element caused the powerful magical beasts who wanted to come out to see what was going on to shrink back in fear. The aura of the Vermilion Bird, the sovereign of the fire-type magical beasts, was released without restraint. However, that powerful aura did not have the slightest desire to attack. Instead, it was filled with love and tolerance, as well as endless yearning and trembling from being moved. The golden red light seemed to have completely engulfed Horror's body in an instant. It wrapped tightly around her and hugged her. Kaike's magnificent tail, feathers rippled in the air like golden ribbons. She spread her wings and danced around her child to her heart's content. At this moment, Hua-Er's body was about the same size as his mother's. He chirped happily and danced excitedly. A knowing smile appeared on Ji-dong's face when he saw this scene. Even the corners of his eyes became slightly moist. There was no doubt that a mother's love was the greatest in this world. No other emotion could compare to it. How could his heart not be moved? With the help of the soaring formation, he was able to fly at such a fast speed. Ji-dong had already decided that the first thing he would do after this was to pay his respects to his parents in this world. It could be considered as fulfilling a wish on behalf of the original owner of this body. The vermilion bird and Hua-Er spiraled downwards until they landed in front of the vermilion bird's cave dwelling. Only then did all the light recede. Hua-Er constantly rubbed her head against the vermilion bird's neck as she let out low cries. One could even see large tears continuously flowing from her eyes. The vermilion bird's wings were completely unfurled and enveloped Hua-Er's body. She lowered her head, and the golden light in her eyes fluctuated. She was clearly extremely excited. Almost 6 years had passed. Even though 6 years was nothing to a divine beast like the vermilion bird, her longing for her child was definitely not any less than a human's. One could imagine her joy at being reunited with her daughter. Ji-dong did not disturb them. He only silently landed to the side and retracted his wings. He quietly watched them as he recovered the demonic energy that he had expended. The vermilion bird did not make him wait for too long. After being affectionate with her daughter, she raised her head and looked at Hyoheim with a gaze filled with kindness and gentleness. She said, "Thank you, Ji-dong." Ji-dong smiled. "Senior Vermilion Bird, it's been 6 years since I've brought Hua back to see you. It's good that you don't blame me." The Vermilion Bird gently shook her head. "Why would I blame you? If it weren't for you, it would have been very difficult for Hua to come to this world. If it weren't for you, forget about 6 years, I wouldn't have been able to help her recover to her current state, even if it had been 60 years. I can sense that Hua-Er's yin and yang dual attribute fire elements are now in perfect harmony and will no longer affect her body. There's even a trace of primal chaos in her body. All of this was given to us by you. If you don't mind, don't call me senior in the future. Just call me Annie." Ji-dong smiled. "Then I won't stand on ceremony, anti-vermilion bird." The vermilion bird let out a soft cry. A golden light flowed and enveloped Ji-dong and Hua-Er's bodies. As the light flickered, they were brought back to the phoenix blood wutong tree inside the cave dwelling in the blink of an eye. In just 6 short years, you've helped Hua-Er reach the 7th order. Ji-dong, it's really hard to imagine how you've done it. Your mana has actually improved so much. The vermilion bird only noticed the changes in Ji-dong's body at this moment. After comprehending the mysteries of the soul fire, Ji-dong's mana was perfectly integrated and restrained. Even a divine beast like the vermilion bird could only notice the changes after careful observation. Ji-dong, I can sense a trace of fear from your body. Could it be that you've already grasped the chaotic fire? The vermilion bird looked at him in astonishment. Ji-dong replied, I can't say that I've grasped it, but I've more or less understood it. Vermilion bird, I brought her back this time to see you. At the same time, I have something to ask of you. If it can be done, I think it'll be a good thing for the Earth Spirit Mountain Range. The vermilion bird nodded. Tell me, I'll do my best to help you as long as it's within my means. Her gratitude towards Ji-dong came from the bottom of her heart. As a mother, what could make her happier than seeing her child grow up smoothly? Furthermore, Ji-dong had the origin of chaos and had comprehended some of the mysteries of the chaotic fire. His future was limitless. No matter how one looked at it, the vermilion bird would never reject Ji-dong's request for help. Ji-dong then told her everything that had happened in the Forest of Life in detail. After listening to his story, the vermilion bird couldn't help but have a strange look in her eyes. Ji-dong, are you saying that the Empress of the Flaming Bar has been with you in the human world? Ji-dong nodded. That's right. What's wrong, Vermilion Bird? The vermilion bird shook her head. It's nothing. You must protect the Empress. The The migration of the forest demons is indeed a good thing for the Earth Spirit Mountain Range. No other race has a deep understanding of nature like the forest demons. With them around, it'll be enough to awaken all living things in the Earth Spirit Mountain Range. How about this? I'll immediately convene the 10,000 Beast Gathering. Although I'm the ruler of the magical beasts here, I must seek their opinion on matters that concern the entire territory. Ji Dong replied, "That's only natural." As he spoke, Ji Dong flipped his wrist and took out the little gourd containing the source of life from his vermilion bird bracelet. "Annie, I think that with this thing, you'll be much more persuasive to them. This is the source of life brewed by the forest demons. It's enough to prove that the forest demons can completely transform the Earth Spirit Mountain Range into a lively paradise." With the vermilion bird strength, even without opening the bottle, she could clearly sense the enormous aura of life within the little gourd. She exclaimed softly as she took the little gourd and pulled out the stopper. When the dew of life entered her body, the golden red flames on the vermilion bird's body instantly rose, causing the light in the cave to double. "This is a good thing. Ji Dong, with this bottle of source of life, I'm almost certain that no magical beast will refuse to accept the arrival of the forest demons. Come with me to the 10,000 Beast Gathering. I'll go and gather them now." Ji Dong shook his head. "No, Vermilion Bird, I don't understand the language of the magical beasts anyway. Do you think I don't trust you? I'm planning to go to the Central Plains city to take care of some matters. When I return, I'll have a conclusion. What? I can stay by your side. You haven't seen each other in a long time. It's a good time to be intimate and spend some time alone." The Vermilion Bird looked at Hua and smiled. "That's good too. I'll need some time to gather all the magical beasts of the 6th rank and above in the Earth Spirit Mountain Range. Including the discussion, it won't take more than 3 days. You just have to return within 3 days." Ji Dong nodded. 3 days is enough. "Auntie, I'll be leaving first." Woo-woo. Hua let out a soft cry. She spread her wings and flew to Ji Dong's side. She pulled Ji Dong's clothes with her beak. She and Ji Dong had been together for many years. Seeing that Ji Dong was about to leave, she was naturally reluctant. Ji Dong patted Hua's head. Hua was obedient. "I'll be back soon. You should spend more time with Chung Kei and Envy." Hua blinked and nodded. She let go of Ji Dong's beak unwillingly. White wings spread out on his back. Ji Dong's body was once again stained with a white light that was unique to the Phoenix Dance's dragon snake transformation state. He stretched his body and turned into a beam of white light as he flew out of the cave. Seeing Ji Dong fly out of the cave, Zhu Kei's eyes were filled with shock. Others might not be able to sense it, but as a fire divine beast and the one who had gifted Ji Dong the Vermilion Bird's inner armor, when Ji Dong used the Phoenix Dance's dragon snake transformation to fly away, she immediately felt the aura that made even her tremble from Ji Dong's body. A faint wisp of white flame rose from the phoenix crown on Zhu Kei's head. It was as thin as silk and only about an inch tall, as if it could be extinguished at any time. That was the flame of chaos that Ji Dong had. Ever since she had fused with the flaming bar's natal red lotus seed, Zhu Kei had also begun to produce the source of chaos. This was also what she and the soaring serpent were pursuing. Back then, the reason why the soaring serpent was willing to use so many things in exchange for a single lotus seed was to open the gate of chaos. Only by walking through the gate of chaos could they possibly enter the realm of the holy beasts. To the Vermilion Bird, this was even more important. Only by becoming a holy beast could she break through the seal here and leave this place. Compared to the Vermilion Bird, Ji Dong's strength was undoubtedly like the difference between heaven and earth. The difference was incalculable, but the Vermilion Bird could clearly feel that the flame of chaos on Ji Dong's body was extremely dense. Furthermore, his flame of chaos had completely fused with his will, turning into a pure fire of the soul. Although they were both flames of chaos, the Vermilion Bird could not compare to Ji Dong. She did not know how many years it would take for her to reach the same level as Ji Dong. If she could ignite her fire of the soul like Ji Dong, then she would not be far from the realm of the holy beast. Chapter 201. Just as the vermilion bird was pondering the extent of Ji-dong's flame of primal chaos, Hor saw her mother emitting the flame of primal chaos. She slightly moved her body, closed her eyes, and suddenly flapped her wings. A gentle white light and black light converged behind her, transforming into an yin-yang fish that was exactly the same as Ji-dong's, just a little smaller. The yin-yang fish floated in front of Hor, and in the center, a small cluster of white flames also rose up. Compared to the vermilion bird's, it was actually a little higher. "Or are you?" The vermilion bird's eyes widened as she looked at the pure flame of primal chaos and the strange yin-yang fish. "Mother really envies you. If it weren't for this annoying seal, Mother would really want to become Ji-dong's magical beast companion. In terms of realm, you have already surpassed Mother." After exiting the vermilion bird's cave, Ji-dong only felt his body and mind relaxed. Seeing the vermilion bird and her mother so affectionately reuniting, he sincerely felt happy for them. At least these past few years, had been improving with him. Just as the vermilion bird had said, following Ji-dong, her already had the potential to become a holy beast. Moreover, there was no need for any contract between them. No matter how far apart they were, they could feel each other's changes at any time. The connection between their souls was even deeper than the connection between their bloodlines. Therefore, leaving the vermilion bird wouldn't be a problem, but if she were to leave Ji-dong for a long time, she would definitely not be able to bear it. Flying into the air, Ji-dong unfolded the phoenix plume. He shook his head in amusement. He really was a fox exploiting the tiger's might. When he didn't need the phoenix plume and no magical beast dared to attack him, then his strength could be considered as truly powerful. When he told Vermilion Bird that he was going to leave, he had already decided what he was going to do. There were two things he had to do. One was to buy a large batch of alcohol, mainly brandy and whiskey. He also needed to buy a large number of sealed glass bottles to test his magic wine. The other thing was to pay his respects to his parents in this world. The Earth Spirit main vein was very close to the Central Plain City. Back then, before he flew back, he could go back and forth in a single night. Now, he didn't even need the soaring dual flame formation. After a while, after flying out of the Earth Spirit mountain range, he could already see the glory of the continent's #1 city in the distance. The last time he came to the Central Plain City, his master's wife and master's master ancestor were in the midst of forcefully taking him back, and almost used a super ultimate skill to bombard the entire city. In the blink of an eye, 5 years had passed, and from the outside, the Central Plains City still looked as magnificent as ever, without any changes. Landing on the ground, Ji-dong headed in the direction of Zhongyuan City. Zhongyuan City was not only the capital of the Middle-earth Empire, it was also the location of the Heavenly STEM Academy. It could be said that experts were as common as trees in a forest in the city. If he were to fly in, he would definitely run into trouble. As he walked step by step towards the Central Plain City, Ji-dong couldn't help but recall the story of his life. Perhaps it was the influence of this life, but his heart felt heavy. Stepping into the wide city gates, he could immediately feel the prosperity of the Central Plains City. There seemed to be more people on the streets than 5 years ago, and it was a lively scene as far as the eye could see. It was already afternoon, and Ji-dong had already thought of a place to go. After passing through a few streets, he directly arrived at Binghua Avenue, one of the 10 main streets of the Central Plains City. Smelling the familiar aroma of roasted meat, he strolled to a 3-story red building. The words "a breath of incense" on the signboard made him feel very familiar. Even though he had only been here once, everything here was still fresh in his memory. Walking into the breath of incense, Ji-dong found a seat in the hall and sat down. Because it was afternoon, there weren't many customers in the restaurant. "Sir, what would you like to order?" the waiter asked. 5 special roasted meat skewers and a liter of high alcohol. Sitting steadily in his seat, Ji-dong couldn't help but smile faintly. The feeling of depression in his heart previously disappeared as his appetite increased. After a while, the waiter brought up a huge tray. The 5-meter-long roasted meat skewers were extremely tempting. Each skewer had 10 pieces of golden, oily roasted meat, and the rich aroma of roasted meat wafted into his nose. With a large liter of high alcohol, even though he hadn't started eating yet, Jidong already felt very satisfied. Grabbing a skewer and putting a large piece of roasted meat in his mouth was immediately filled with fragrance. As soon as he bit down on the hot roasted meat, the rich gravy immediately filled his mouth. Apart from the word satisfying, Jidong really couldn't think of any other words to describe it. The ale appeared to be a rich amber color and wasn't transparent. After drinking it in one gulp, the cold and rich smell of wheat flowed freely into his throat. The high malt taste was very satisfying. Drinking wine in big mouthfuls and eating meat in big mouthfuls, it was only in this mouthful of aroma that one could have such a wonderful feeling. Eating with a mouthful of fragrant aroma, one shouldn't think about eating vegetables. That would completely ruin the feeling of being able to eat to one's heart's content. 5-meter-long skewers of meat were all in Jidong's stomach in a short while, and the whole liter of ale was almost finished. It had been a long time since he was this full. Jidong leaned back in his chair in satisfaction and drank the rest of the ale in one gulp. He said, "One more liter." The slightly rising alcohol made all the cells in his body moan in comfort. Jidong rarely had the chance to relax like this. He mumbled to himself, after settling the matter with the forest demon, "I'll definitely bring the flaming bar here for a meal next time. She'll definitely like it. Why wait until next time?" A soft voice entered Jidong's ears. Jidong shuddered and turned his head. He saw that the flaming bar had come to his side without him knowing. What shocked Jidong the most was that the flaming bar wasn't alone. There was another person beside her. He was about 1.8 meters tall and had a head of straight, golden hair that reached his waist. He wore a golden full-body armor that almost covered his entire body. The shining armor attracted the attention of all the guests and staff in the mouthful of Fragrance Hotel. There were arc-shaped patterns on the shining armor. The patterns were dark gold in color and shone brilliantly with the golden armor. In addition to the fluttering golden hair, he gave off an extremely strong and oppressive feeling. Jidong knew this person. However, the person he knew was a dead person, while the one in front of him was clearly alive. It was the golden-armored woman who was sealed in ice on the holy evil island. The full-body armor mask covered her face, and a powerful aura spread out unabashedly. The air seemed to have become sharp because of her aura. Hidden behind the mask, a pair of icy blue eyes radiated power, but they were emotionless. Seeing Jidong's shocked expression, the flaming bar couldn't help but smile. She said, "Jean, sit down too. Let's eat together." The golden-armored woman, Jean, didn't say anything. Jidong only saw a flash of golden light, and she was already sitting beside the flaming bar. She was wearing such a heavy and dazzling full-body armor, but she didn't make a sound. From this alone, Jidong could tell that the woman must be extremely powerful. "Flaming bar. What's going on?" Jidong suppressed the shock in his heart and asked in a low voice. The flaming bar giggled and said, "I'm hungry. You're eating so happily. Give us something to eat first." Jidong nodded and asked the waiter for 10 special kebabs and 2 liters of ale. At this moment, he had no choice but to become the focus of the hotel. The flaming bar was a little better. After all, they were wearing ordinary clothes and their faces were covered. However, the golden-armored woman was too eye-catching. Just as Jidong was about to continue asking, the golden-armored woman suddenly stood up. She turned around and walked to the next table. There were 3 middle-aged men eating at that table, but their eyes were focused on the golden-armored woman. Seeing the golden-armored woman walk over, the 3 middle-aged men couldn't help but panic. They had difficulty breathing because of Jin's oppressive aura. One of them asked tentatively, "What do you want?" Jin stopped in front of the next table. There was a crisp clang, and a golden light flashed. She said, "If you keep looking, I'll kill you." After saying that, she walked back to Jidong and the flaming bar and sat in her previous seat. Her voice wasn't melodious and mellow like the flaming bars. Instead, it was sonorous and powerful. Every word seemed to be filled with explosive power and a cold chill. She said a total of 7 words. These 7 words seemed to be stacked with 7 layers of killing intent. With every additional word, her aura became colder. It was filled with a terrifying killing intent, causing the temperature in the entire one breath of incense to drop rapidly. Even the flames on the charcoal stove at the side of the barbecue were affected and suppressed. Just as she sat down, a cracking sound came from the neighboring table, and the entire table broke into pieces, turning into a pile of splintered wood. The most terrifying thing was that every piece of wood was extremely uniform in size, and they all looked to be about an inch square. The 3 middle-aged men felt a chill run down their backs at almost the same time. Their faces turned pale and livid. They couldn't even speak. Their lips were even trembling. They knew very well that the golden-armored woman wasn't joking. Trembling, the 3 of them turned around and left. Ji-dong's pupils contracted violently. Even he didn't see how the golden-armored woman did it. At that time, he only saw a golden light shoot out from the golden-armored woman's hand. The light flashed and disappeared at an unprecedented speed. Jean, the flaming bar called out in a slightly reproachful tone. Jean said indifferently, I'm sorry, master. I don't like being stared at. Ji-dong looked at the flaming bar in confusion. The flaming bar said, when I returned to the Earth's core, the dragon egg still needed a little more energy to hatch. However, the ice that covered Jean had already melted. I used the chaotic energy to awaken the vitality in her body, and she came back to life. Do you remember that I told you that she didn't feel any vitality in her body? She didn't know how many years she had been frozen on the holy evil island. Now that she woke up, everything was the same as before she was frozen. However, because she had been frozen for too long, her soul and memory were severely damaged. She lost her previous memories. Because I saved her, she recognized me as her master. Then I brought her back to find you. Jean is also a human magician, extreme metal. After listening to the flaming bar's simple explanation, Ji-dong couldn't help but smile bitterly. He said, extreme magic seems to be less and less valuable now. I remember Yao Qianshu also told me that only heavenly stem holy disciples can have extreme magic before they reach the 9th crown. Although her skills are extremely high, she probably hasn't reached the 9th crown yet, right? The flaming bar nodded slowly. In terms of overall strength, she might not be as good as you, but that's considering that you have the help of Hu-er and the little dragon that is about to hatch. In terms of individual strength, I'm afraid you're still not her match. Jin's battle skills are among the yin and yang magician, just like your bartending skills are among the bartenders. After hearing the flaming bar's words, Ji-dong couldn't help but be shocked. With the flaming bar status, she naturally wouldn't easily praise someone. Since she said that, it was clear how terrifying Jin's strength was. He couldn't help but look at the golden-armored woman in front of him in a new light. What's going on? Who tore apart my table? Right at this moment, a deep voice was heard, accompanied by the sound of footsteps. A brawny man in chef's attire strode over with a face full of anger. Perhaps it was because of his weight, but his feet landed very heavily on the ground. He had lost his right arm, and only a black hole was left in his left eye. The entire left side of his face was covered in hideous scars. It was the owner of this breath of incense, Cannon Dragon Abing. When Fury first stepped onto the holy evil battlefield, it was under his leadership. If Bing hadn't tried his best to save him, the Thunder Emperor might not have existed. However, he was also left with a body full of injuries. Fury was extremely respectful to this senior brother of his. Jean turned her head slightly and was about to stand up when she saw the furious Yen. Ji-dong quickly stood up and stood in front of her. After Cannon Dragon Bing was crippled, his demonic power had been maintained at around 5 crowns. Even though he was an extremely outstanding disciple in the yin-yang school back then, it could be seen from the flaming bar's description that he was no match for Jean. Ji-dong didn't want Jean to injure the Cannon Dragon. How was he going to answer to Fury if that happened? Jean saw that Ji-dong was standing in front of her, and a murderous look flashed across her cold blue eyes. She raised her hand and slashed towards Ji-dong's shoulder. Stop! The flaming bar shouted in a low voice. Jean looked at her in confusion. The flaming bar also turned her head to look at her at the same time. Even though the flaming bar's face was covered by a veil, her faint glance passed through the veil and pierced Ah Jin's eyes. Ah Jin's body trembled slightly. She slowly softened and sat down again. The flaming bar said calmly, "Ah Jin, if you still want to follow me, you are not to attack without my orders in the future." Even though the flaming bar's voice was very calm, it was filled with an unquestionable authority. The most terrifying thing was that the powerful pressure she emitted was only directed at Ah Jin. Jidong and Cannon Dragon Ah Bing did not feel it. Ah Jin stared at the flaming bar. She paused for a moment before nodding and withdrawing her aura. "Senior brother, do you still recognize me?" Jidong asked the Cannon Dragon with a smile. Chapter 202. Cannon Dragon looked at Jidong in confusion. He took off his chef's hat and revealed his bald head. Compared to 5 years ago, he was obviously fatter. His waistline was thicker. Although it was hard for him to improve, his eyesight was not bad at all. When he saw the golden-armored lady, he felt a chill run down his spine. That dazzling golden armor was not just for show. He thought he was in big trouble, but he was stunned when Jidong called him senior. "You are," Jidong said respectfully. "5 years ago, senior brother Fury brought me and Bao Air here to eat your barbecue. We even met Master's wife that time. Don't you remember?" Cannon Dragon thought for a while. Suddenly, he slapped his bald head and said, "It's you, kid. You're Jidong, right? I've always heard about you from Fury." In the blink of an eye, 5 years have passed. "Why are you here? What's going on?" Jidong smiled bitterly and said, "Senior brother, please don't take offense. This table is mine. Just now, there were a few people staring at my friend. My friend has a bad temper, so I scare them. It's all my fault. I couldn't stop him in time and affected senior brother's business." Cannon Dragon Bing glanced at Ajin and said, "Since you're one of us, don't talk about it affecting our business. What can I ask you pay for? Fury only has one junior brother. You're his brother, which means you're also my brother. Don't call me senior brother anymore. Just call me big brother." "Big brother, I'll do as you say." Jidong liked Cannon Dragon's straightforward personality, so he immediately agreed. However, Cannon Dragon's straightforward next sentence made him feel awkward. "Little brother, you're lucky with women. Which one of them is your sister-in-law?" "Both of them." Jidong turned to look at the flaming bar and Ajin. He said helplessly, "Big brother, please be merciful. These two are my friends." The flaming bar stood up and said to Cannon Dragon, "Your barbecue is very good. Unfortunately, your mana is blocked. Otherwise, it would be better." As the queen of the core world, she naturally wouldn't call him big brother like Jidong. She already stood up to greet him because of Jidong. Cannon Dragon laughed and said, "So what if it's blocked? It's been so many years." "All right, take a seat first. I'll go barbecue for you. It's rare for brother Jidong to come to my place, so today's meal is on me." "Wait a minute," the flaming bar suddenly said. Cannon Dragon frowned slightly. Although Raging Flame's voice was extremely pleasant to listen to, it had an invisible sense of superiority, causing him to feel extremely depressed in his heart. He had opened a mouthful of incense here for many years, and even the teachers of the Heavenly STEM Academy respected him greatly. Towards Raging Flame's attitude, he really didn't like it, but for Jidong's sake, he didn't flare up. Otherwise, he would have left in a huff. "Is there anything else?" Cannon Dragon's voice also became slightly colder. The flaming bar didn't seem to notice the change in Cannon Dragon's mood. She still spoke in the same tone. "Physical disability doesn't mean that mana can't be unblocked. As long as the blocked meridians can be connected and opened, they can still be recovered. If you forcefully cultivate with blocked meridians, the mana accumulated in your body will make your meridians unable to bear it. If you don't do it soon, you can live for a year at most. Your body is thick, not because you're fat, but because of mana." Hearing the flaming bar's words, Cannon Dragon couldn't help but reveal a shocked expression. He said, "You can see through my condition." The flaming bar nodded and said, "I can't eat your roasted meat for free. Consider it as compensation for Ajin's table. Jidong, help him. The crucial parts are the left eye and the broken left arm." She stopped here. The rest of her words were imprinted in Ji Dong's mind through the communication between their souls. Canon Dragon looked at them in a daze and murmured, "That's impossible. Even the teachers of the academy can't do it." The flaming bar sat down again and said indifferently, "Of course, ordinary magic masters can't do it because it's very difficult for them to suppress your mana. Once your block meridians are severed, you won't be able to unblock them and explode from your own mana. You'll only die quickly. Even if they have a way to suppress your mana, they can't reconnect your meridians in a short period of time. You'll still die quickly. That's why no one dares to act rashly." As she spoke, the flaming bar flipped her wrist, and the small green gourd containing the source of life appeared in her palm. When she had communicated with Ji Dong previously, she already knew that Ji Dong had left his bottle for the vermilion bird. "Big brother Cannon Dragon, are you willing to believe me?" Ji Dong took the gourd and looked at Cannon Dragon with a serious expression. Cannon Dragon put on his chef's hat again and said, "Brother, there's nothing to believe or not. Didn't your friend say that if I don't treat it, I won't be able to live for more than a year? Let's try everything we can. If I die, then I die. It's not a big deal. I've lived long enough." Ji Dong chuckled and said, "Big brother, as long as you believe me, I'm more than 90% sure. Let's go. We need to find a quiet place." "What's the hurry? I'll let you have a good meal first." "Wait here, I'll go roast meat." Cannon Dragon turned around and walked towards the kitchen. His ferocious face involuntarily revealed a bit of excitement. Although the flaming bar didn't speak much, he could feel how different this girl with a perfect voice was. Cannon Dragon's social experience was very rich. From Ji Dong's expression towards the flaming bar, he could see a lot of things. When Ji Dong looked at the flaming bar, in addition to admiration, there was also respect. He had heard Fury talk about Ji Dong in detail. To be able to be hailed as the successor by Fury, and to be able to display his invincible might on the battlefield of the holy evil, there was no doubt about Ji Dong's strength. To be able to earn his respect, it could be seen that this veiled girl had an extraordinary background. Moreover, this was the first time he met someone who could accurately describe his situation with just a glance. For the confident tone of the girl and Ji Dong, he knew that his chance to recover had really come. "Flaming bar, thank you. If it wasn't for you, I really wouldn't know how to help Brother Cannon Dragon," Ji Dong said. Flaming bar shook his head and said, "Other than you, I'm not used to owing others anything. Moreover, I can see that you respect him very much. Someone that you respect is naturally worth saving. You must remember that chaos creates everything. You must use the purest chaos to quickly repair his meridians and restore them to a state of circulation. You must also help him strengthen his meridians. With the source of life, this will be much easier." Ji Dong nodded and said, "Don't worry, I share the same attribute as Brother Cannon Dragon. According to your method, there shouldn't be any problem. If Senior Brother Fury knows that Brother Cannon Dragon can recover his cultivation, he will definitely be very happy." Flaming Bar said, "His body is disabled. He will never be able to reach the level of 9 Crowns Supreme. He should be able to reach 8 Crowns Supreme." After a while, Cannon Dragon personally carried a tray over. There was a large skewer of gambling meat and a large mug of ale. Flaming Bar gently lifted her veil, revealing only her warm and tender red lips. She ate in small bites. Ajin did not stand on ceremony either. Half of her mask was lifted, revealing her mouth as well. However, her table manners were not as elegant as Flaming Bar's. She ate the roasted meat in big mouthfuls. Although she did not say anything, when she occasionally raised her head to look at Cannon Dragon, her gaze was clearly much more relaxed. It was obvious that she was very satisfied with the roasted meat. Ji Dong realized that Ajin's face was slightly thinner, and her lips were slightly thinner. Although she did not look as perfect as Flaming Bar's, one could tell from the lines of her face and her lips that she was definitely a beauty. Ji Dong patted Cannon Dragon's shoulder and said, "Big brother, I've already eaten. Let them eat here. Let's go in. The sooner we cure you, the better I can be at ease." With Ajin's protection, he did not need to worry about Flaming Bar's safety. All right, Cannon Dragon Bing did not put on any airs. He stood up and brought Ji Dong upstairs. After the two of them left, Jin's eating speed slowed down a little. She said in a low voice, "Master, this meat is very delicious." Flaming Bar looked at her and said, "Don't eat anymore. I don't know how many years it's been since your stomach has eaten food. You've just recovered, so you can't eat too much. However, you can drink less of this ale. When we get back to the Forest of Life, I'll get you another bottle of Source of Life. Your body should be able to recover by then. Unfortunately, the soul is the most mysterious part of a human. I can't help you recover your memory. Whether you can recover or not will depend on your own luck." Jean nodded lightly. She put down the meat skewer and slowly drank the ale. Bing brought Ji Dong to a room on the top floor of the Stick of Incense and locked the door. He said to Hyoheim, "This is where I usually rest. No one will come here. Let's do it here." Ji Dong said, "Big brother, it might be a little painful later. You'll have to bear with it." Bing laughed and said, "Don't worry. I can bear with a little pain. I'm not even afraid of death. Pain is nothing to me." As he spoke, he walked to the side of the bed, took off his shoes, and sat cross-legged. Ji Dong floated up and sat behind Bing. He said in a low voice, "Big brother, no matter what you feel later, try to relax your body. Don't circulate your mana. I'm here." Bing nodded. He placed his right hand on his knee and closed his eyes. Ji Dong raised his hands and placed them on Bing's broad back. With a thought, the light of the ultimate dual fire appeared behind Ji Dong at the same time. In an instant, a blazing sun and a crescent moon appeared on either side of Ji Dong. The not-so-spacious room was instantly filled with the aura of the ultimate dual fire. Bing grunted and furrowed his brows. The sudden burst of overbearing elemental suppression was injected into his body along with Ji Dong's palms. Ji Dong's mana level was higher than his, and he even had the ultimate yin and yang flames. Even if they were far away, the elemental suppression would still exist, let alone at such a close distance. The cannon dragon, Bing felt an endless amount of mana coming from behind him. Coupled with the difference in their elemental strength, not only was he unable to move, he even lost connection with the mana in his body. This was the effect that Ji Dong wanted. In order to cure the cannon dragon, he first had to completely suppress the mana in his body. Only then would the condensed mana not come out and cause trouble when he helped to clear his meridians. When the mana was injected into the cannon dragon's body, Ji Dong felt the danger he was in. The mana in the cannon dragon's body could no longer circulate on its own. It was in the form of lumps that were distributed among the meridians all over his body. Many parts of the meridians were propped up by the solid mana. Some parts of the meridians were as thin as a cicada's wings, looking as if they could shatter at any time. Once one of the meridians was broken, the terrifying mana that had condensed into a solid form would break through the shackles without hesitation. That would be the cannon dragon's death. Now, Ji Dong felt that Flaming Bar was being too conservative. To him, it would be good if the cannon dragon could live for more than a month. Realizing the difficulty of the situation, Ji Dong was not in a hurry to take action. Instead, he adjusted his breathing to make his aura more stable. Then, he began to circulate his mana. The light of the sun and the moon behind him quietly fused and turned into a black and white yin and yang fish. The ultimate attribute that Ji Dong emitted suddenly turned into a neutral and peaceful aura. This was the most moderate mana after the yin and yang were balanced. At the same time, it was also the softest and most acceptable mana. Of course, this existence that had lost its ultimate aura should not be underestimated, because it was transformed from the embryonic form of chaos. The gentle mana slowly poured into Bing's body, but the attribute suppression effect did not disappear. The mana within the cannon dragon's body became a lot more obedient under the attribute suppression. It allowed the gentle mana to pour into its body, but it could not put up an effective resistance. This was the difference in strength. In addition, Ji Dong released the most gentle fire attribute, which would not stimulate the cannon dragon's mana to erupt. Ji Dong was very careful. He first infused his mana that was fused with the aura of chaos into the cannon dragon's meridians. At this moment, a white flame could be clearly seen burning between Ji Dong's eyebrows. That wasn't just the flame of chaos, but also the soul fire that had fused with Ji Dong's soul. Under the guidance of the soul fire, his mental strength had been opened to the greatest extent. The distribution and condition of the Cannon Dragon's meridians were like a map, completely presented in the depths of Ji Dong's mind. Gentle magic power densely covered the Cannon Dragon's body, gradually plated its fragile meridians with a layer of protective magic power. Even without the attribute suppression, it was impossible for the magic power in the Cannon Dragon's meridians to break through Ji Dong's seemingly gentle but magical magic power that was fused with the ultimate transformation of chaos. After doing this, Ji Dong's energy really shifted to the Cannon Dragon's left eye and left arm meridians. He first began to unclog the location of the Cannon Dragon's broken left arm. As the saying goes, it's better to get the pain over with as soon as possible. After finding the place where the knot was, Ji Dong did not hesitate to urge his mana and cut down like a sharp blade.